Hello there, I am ManInYellow, and in this video we are going to be doing a map design tier list for Phobies. Note that I said design, so this is not just going to be which maps I think are fun for me to play on. Rather, this is going to be a list of which maps I think are great for the game and for the general player out there, because there is some difference between those two, since there are a few maps that I think are really well designed that I don't love playing on, and there is also a few maps that are less well designed that I really find fun personally. But that still doesn't mean that other players should have to suffer just because I like a worse map, and it also doesn't mean that a great map should be taken out of the game just because I don't like it, because the general player is going to find it fun, or the average player is going to find it fun to play on that specific map. So we're going to go through all of the maps and place them into these tiers. We have a lot of maps down here. I have hopefully gotten all of them, but if I missed one, then feel free to leave a comment about it. I think I have all of them though. The only one I couldn't find a picture for is Withering Heights down here at the bottom, because I just couldn't find a single picture anywhere with that map outside of like some games, but then there's a lot of like visual clutter. So I'm just going to like bring this in here from the Phobies map creator and use that instead for that one map. But the criteria we are going to be looking at for the map design are 3 points essentially. First of all playstyles, meaning aggro, mid-range, control, and combo, should be viable to at least some degree, because if you are forcing players into one specific playstyle, that is really unfun, because you may be a player who really enjoys playing mid-range and control, and then if I force you into aggro or I force you into combo, that is really not very fun. That's like the equivalent of trying to play, let's just say, League of Legends, and you don't get to choose your champion. That would be really unfun for the game, so that shouldn't be happening. Second of all, matches should move forward naturally due to the map's design. What I mean by this is that games on one specific map should not take on average 30 to 40 minutes or more just because like the map is badly designed, because that is a sign that the game has come to like a complete standstill and both players are just sitting there and staring at each other without doing anything, and that gets boring really fast, especially if you have to play on the map multiple times. Third point is that the map cannot be too collection dependent, and you shouldn't be forced to bring a specific phobia on it. So for the specific phobia part, that could be something like Gravedigger, where you are forced to bring it to break a block, because otherwise the map is just unplayable. And for the collection dependent part, that would also be to some degree that. But for example, you could have a map with a ton of abyss tiles, and if you don't have like the right displacement phobies or a lot of flyers, suddenly you cannot play on that map at all, and you're just going to lose to players who have those phobies. And that also feels really bad, because if you're losing due to like lacking a specific type of phobia rather than your skill level, that is a really bad feeling, and I think that's just very bad for the game. So we also shouldn't have any maps where you have to bring like some specific stuff. It could also be a map where there's too many walls, and because of that you just have to play lobbers. That's also really unfun. So those are the 3 points we're going to be judging the maps on. You can see we have 5 tiers in here. First of all, we have Peak. Peak is essentially maps that I think are like beyond perfect. They are like flawless maps that are also incredibly fun and like are just a bit above the great maps. The great maps are ones that have no real flaws and pretty much always feel good to play on. These are like the well-designed maps that I would say we should be aiming for. Then we have good maps. Good maps are ones where the map is playable and kind of fun to play on a lot of the time, but there is some like minor issue with it that could be made better by maybe changing the map, or just has like a design flaw that makes it not quite good enough to go into the great map tier. Then we have playable maps. These are maps where they technically speaking move forward, but they are not particularly fun, and they have some major issues that makes them less enjoyable to play on. This could be that they are too slow, or that you have to have one specific phobia to play on them, for example. So maybe you need Prometheus to play the game, or maybe you cannot like advance the game past a certain point. That is like bad feeling things, so that would be just playable maps, because the map is technically still like playable to a certain degree where some things happen, but it's just not quite fun. And then finally we have bad maps. These are maps that often break multiple criteria or break one of them like really, really hard. So for example, it could be a map where there's just a complete standstill and you cannot actively play the game, where both players are just sitting there for literally 100 turns without doing anything. That would be a bad map. So let's just go through all of the maps here. I have them in alphabetical order, I believe at least. So we are going to be starting with a Nightmares Refugee. I'm also going to pull every map up like as a full screen so that you can actually see it, because otherwise it would be hard to tell with just the small icons. A Nightmares Refugee is, in my opinion, a great map. This feels like it's what like Step Right Up should have been, or at least what it was supposed to be. But unlike Step Right Up, you don't have to go Gravedigger here, but you can still play Gravedigger, which is really important as a like distinction. A map where you are forced to go Gravedigger on is not very fun. A map where Gravedigger is optional is often a very good sign. So I think this map is just great. There's enough points to fight over. You can bring Gravedigger if you want to like break this bottom block and then place the Gravedigger either here or here early on, and that gives you easy access to this point and makes it easier to attack the opponent's heart. But you don't have to do that. You can also just play out here with some turrets, and that's also fun. You can fight over the points. There's a heart that is attackable, and the healing spire is far enough back that you have to retreat to use it, which is very important, because if a healing spire is in too good of a defensive position, it slows the game down drastically. So for example, if the healing spire was sitting here and here, that would be like really bad placement, but it's placed further back, which makes it way more fun. So this is just a great map in my opinion, and it's going to go into the great map tier because of that. Next up, we have Agora, which is probably a map that most of you have never seen, because this is a map that has not been in the game for a very, very long time. And there's a good reason for that. It's because this map is really bad. The lava and abyss tiles that you see here in the middle just makes it way too difficult to actually fight the opponent. Like, you basically cannot cross them most of the time, and that means that you just end up with most of your team sitting here and here, and most of the opponent's team sitting here and here, and you're both just doing absolutely nothing. And you can't really contest these middle points because of the abyss tiles. These corner points are just really difficult to actually attack. The heart is in an open space, but you can't ever really go there because of the lava. So this map is just terrible. I also think this map is actually very, very difficult to redesign in a way where you're not completely changing it. So I just don't really see this map being something that should even be put back into the game. This is not a map that you should actually try and redesign and then like put in the game, because there's a lot of these maps that there are just like some small changes to and then they become really good. This is not one of them. This is just a straight up bad map, and I'm happy that we haven't seen it in the game again after it got removed. Next up, we have Always Watching. Always Watching is playable in my opinion. It needs one more panic point in the middle, and then it would probably move into like being maybe a good map. You could also maybe like run some other things with this. Like maybe you could change some of the like placements of stuff, but the problem is if you like remove pretty much any of this stuff here, you're changing the map's identity really drastically, because if you like remove this block, suddenly it's not about lobbers anymore. If you move the heart away, that also changes quite a lot. So it's a little bit difficult to picture exactly how you would change this. Maybe you can do something where you like move the vault into a different position, but I think that's difficult to do, and again, it changes the identity of the map a lot. So I think this should just be like a map that you accept is not going to be a great map, but it's going to be a good map, and a good map is still fine. That's like something you're fine with seeing in a rotation. It's not something you're super excited for, but you're also not unhappy about it. So if they just put this panic point in the middle, I think that would make it a lot better, because you just need a little bit more to fight over on this map. So having a panic point there would be good. But this is going into the playable tier. Next up, we have Another One Bites the Dust. Another One Bites the Dust is one of the few good maps with double vaults in each corner. There's a lot of double vault maps that are really bad. I think there's actually only 2 of them that are good so far, in my opinion. I think that this map is going into the good map tier. The heart is probably a little bit too difficult to approach. And by probably, I mean definitely. But it's also kind of hard to move it further out without having to drastically change the map. I think maybe you can do a thing where you put the heart like here for both players, and that would be fine. But I'd have to try and like test that, because maybe it becomes too aggressive then. I'm not sure if it would, but there's a possibility that could happen. It's also possible that this is just the best version of this map. It's hard to say. I think the heart feels like very difficult to attack though, so maybe that is something they should try and improve, but it's not high priority in my opinion. Currently it's just a good map, and a good map is something we're happy to see. Then we have Biffs Room. Biffs Room is a bad map. The problems with this map is, first of all, the panic points out here and here are too close to the vault. That means they are uncontestable, so you can just immediately take them with a 1 key or with any 2 movement phobie. And what that does for a map is it means that we effectively only have 1 panic point that we fight over, and that inevitably leads to a very slow, boring match. Second flaw of this map is that the heart is too difficult to approach, so the heart has to move 1 tile forward here, in my opinion. In order to fix this map, essentially what you do is just you move the panic points 1 tile in each, so that they're here instead, and then you move the heart out either to here and here, or here and here. I don't know exactly which one is best for like moving the heart out, but it should be definitely moving like in 1 tile. I think it's probably better to move it down here and up here, but that's kind of like a small thing that you can maybe play test your way to. But having the panic points be out here on the sides just makes this map bad. I also will say, I think if they change that to like the heart being further forward and both of the panic points being 1 tile further in, it instantly jumps into either being in the good tier or great tier, so it has a lot of potential to be better. Then we have Billy's Room. Billy's Room is like playable, I would say. The heart tends to be a little bit too easy to defend due to the stim pad in a lot of games. This is especially bad for like less experienced players who don't know how to deal with 3-range phobies, or maybe just don't even have the tools for it. So maybe the heart should move slightly further in, or you can like remove the stim pad entirely, but that changes the map a lot. I think the only real change you can really do is you just swap this block and the heart, and you have the heart sit further in, and that makes the map a little bit more aggressive, and maybe that's enough for it to move up, but currently I think it's just gonna be unplayable. It could maybe go into good tier if you swap the heart around. Then we have Carnival Rows. This is a very bad map. I would say this is the only rework they have tried to do that was a failure. This is straight up just a failed rework in my opinion, actually. There's nothing good about this map still. Like, yeah, they made it maybe very slightly better, but it's still a terrible map. The problem with this map is, first of all, the hearts are way too far out. It's just nearly impossible to get to them if you're trying to play aggressive, which means that both mid-range and aggro are unplayable on this map. On top of that, we have a middle panic point that is surrounded by 2 blocks on the top and 2 blocks at the bottom, and that is a thing you will see for a decent chunk of small maps that are bad, because that makes the game very slow. It makes it so you can't fight the opponent. It slows the game down to a essentially a standstill just naturally. You almost cannot play aggressive on maps that are like that. So that just makes the map very bad. And I don't think this map is even interesting either. It really doesn't have any redeemable qualities, so it should probably just be straight up deleted. This is just going into the bad tier. Next up we have Castaway. Castaway is, in my opinion, just a great map. We have a lot of points we can fight over in here. These 3 points are ones you can fight over. We have stim pads that you also fight over because they're in proximity to both of the hearts. So you have to fight over them, or the opponent will just take control of the stim pad and turn that into a heart rush. And obviously they're not going to be hitting your hard from the stim pad most of the time. But if they're sitting up here with a bunch of phobies, it becomes really hard to approach them. So you have to fight over the stim pad early on, and that is really healthy. I think maybe it becomes slightly too slow with proper map scaling, but that's hard to say without trying it. I haven't played a lot of level 1 matches on it. Maybe it's fine even with map scaling. Overall, I just think this map is great. I think maybe you could make an argument for like moving the healing spa slightly back, but I don't think that's really required at all. I think this is just a great map, and it doesn't really have anything bad I can actually say about it. Next up, we have Center of Attention, which is the reworked version of... I'm forgetting its name. It's essentially the exact same map, except we had a lot of lava in here in the middle. And it is a lot better than the other version of the map that is, I believe, still in rotation, which is not something that it should be in my opinion. But removing the lava from the middle made it significantly better, because now you can actually stand in the middle, which means that pushers are less disgusting. They're still really, really good here, but at least it's like somewhat playable now. And it doesn't feel like you have to go flyers either, like you did before. I believe cards suggested that moving one of the vaults to the top and replacing it with a panic point would be good here. So we put a panic point down here, and then we move the vault up here instead. I think it was Cast who suggested that. That would probably be a lot better. I think maybe you do that and remove this Abyss tile on both sides. Maybe you don't even need to remove the Abyss tile. It's hard to say without testing it, but I think that would make the map fun. You could maybe, even if you're doing that and moving the vault up here, add another pair of panic points like this or something, instead of putting a panic point out in the corner, depending on how you want the map to play out. But I think that would improve the map even more. And it still has a lot of room for improvement, because I still don't think it's like a great map. I think it just goes into playable. Then we have Center Stage, which is what they tried to rework and created Carnival Rows with, I believe. Center Stage is a disgustingly boring map in my experience, and in pretty much everyone's experience. There's no real way of fixing this without changing it, because the identity is that there's a bunch of walls in the center, and if you remove the walls, then it's not a circle anymore. And the walls are what are making the map really, really bad. So there's no way of fixing it, and quite honestly, this map is not interesting at all either, so there's no real reason to try and rework it. You should just press the big delete button and remove it completely, and that is just better for the game. This is obviously going into the bad maps tier. Then we have Chapeltown. I think this is just a great map. I have literally nothing bad to say about this. It feels like you can attack the heart. There's enough contestable panic points. The poison tiles are interesting and actually improve the map, I think. Having a healing spa is also great, because it means you're not forced to go mechanicals. You can actually go onto the spa if you get poisoned, because you get like pushed into the poison or something. Or you just have to walk onto it to fight. And that's great. There's also the conveyor towards the healing spa, which I think is great, because it makes it easier to retreat, but it's still a tempo loss if you retreat using it. So that's just nice. And overall, I just don't have anything bad to say about this map. I think it's just great fun pretty much every time. So that is going into the great maps tier. Then we have Coime to Me. Coime to Me is a good map in my opinion. I think you could make it slightly better by moving or by adding a couple more panic points, because often right now it feels like you're fighting over the top panic points a little bit early on and getting some heart damage. Then you get your stuff up here. One player takes control of these, the other player takes control of these, and then this point you're not really fighting over because it's too close to the vault. So if you start fighting over it, people will just gravedigger these blocks, or they will have a lobber nearby, so you can't really fight over it. And so you're just only fighting over this in like one middle point, which is not that interesting. That gets a little bit boring and slow. So what I would do to this map is I would add some more panic points near the middle. You could choose to add one here, or here. I think you should do 2 of those. So I would say I would probably prefer to do the one at the bottom and the one at the top like this. I think that would be the most interesting, but you could also make an argument for the middle one somehow. You could maybe even make an argument for moving both of these panic points one tile in, or something like that. I definitely just think this is like making the map slightly better though, because it's already not a bad map to play on. It feels pretty good most of the time. You can just make it slightly more interesting by having another point or 2 to fight over near the middle, because that would speed the game up and force players to interact a little bit more. Because often the mid game on this map is like slightly boring, and then during the end game it gets more exciting again. So you have like the early game is exciting, then the mid game slows the game down and it's kind of like, okay, nothing's happening anymore, and then the late game becomes exciting again. And it would be better if the mid game was also a little bit more fun. So that's just going into the good map tier. Still a good map. It could just be made slightly better by like adding those points. Next up we have Coulrophobia. This is a map that I did not like in the beginning, but I actually think it is a great map. The reason why I didn't like it in the beginning was just that I felt it was too difficult to actually like defend. But I figured out how to do that. You essentially just have to go for flyers and actually contest the panic points and contest the stim pad instead of just trying to walk directly towards the opponent's heart and like not interacting with the opponent and just playing full hard rush. You actually contest the panic points, and that is often a like sign of a great map. If you are first trying to take points and then trying to hit the heart after, that is a like great sign that the map is not too aggressive, but it's still somewhat aggressive. I also think that the like lack of space on the map actually adds to the map. It feels really cramped, which is actually healthy, I think, for this specific map. That's not something I like for most maps, but for this map I think it works. And it only really works because of the stim pad at the top and bottom near the hearts, because those allow you to play super aggressive and hit the enemy hard if you get to them with like a reasonable phobia such as a Bomangles or even a Ginsting or something. But you can totally still defend by either having like a flyer go here early on, or you put microscopic here. That's a very common thing. You can also break this block and then have phobies that like move towards this. Maybe you have an Inoculus sit here and defend your stim pad by having enough range to hit down here. That can work. I've also seen some players even test out Prometheus on it, and they like remove some of these lava tiles so they can have a turret near the heart and defend that way. There's a lot of ways you can actually defend, so you're not forced to go for one specific thing, and it's just a great map. I don't really have anything bad to say about it. It has a little bit of a high learning curve, I guess. You could maybe say that's bad, but I still think it's a great map. There's not really anything bad about it. Then we have Crypto. This is like the old map that everyone hated because it's bad. It was like notorious for just being a really bad map that nobody liked pretty much outside of Blastomatic players, because it was in the very early days and not a lot of people had line attacks. So if you had Blastomatic, this was like almost a free win. At least it felt that way for a very long time, because players weren't really great enough at the game to try and actually attack a Blastomatic it anyway. But this map is just straight up terrible. You only have one contestable panic point, which is the middle one. The heart is like ultra defended with both lava tile here and a stim pad right in front of it, which makes it easy to defend. There's also a healing spa, which is placed perfectly for defending. So there's just no way to really fight the opponent. These blocks also make it harder to fight even. So there's a lot of really, really bad things for this map. I think you can probably make this map decent, but it's gonna change the original design quite a lot. You pretty much have to either delete the stim pad or like move it into a corner of the map for it to feel good or something weird. The healing spa has to move backwards so that it's not like way too easy to defend with it, so it probably has to go like all the way back here for both players. Then the panic points have to move in so that they're actually like contestable and both players can fight over them. The heart maybe even has to move in. There has to be a decent chunk of changes for this to actually work. So I think it's possible to maybe make a decent version of this match or this map that is like quite altered, but it's just a pretty bad map. It's gonna take a lot of work to make it good, at least. That's what I'm just gonna say about it. Then we have Dark Manor as the next one. I think Dark Manor is a bad map for me personally. Some people would maybe put it in playable because the heart is somewhat exposed. I think it's a bad map though, because these disease tiles prevent interaction with the opponent way too much. It's just way too difficult to actually fight the opponent. And then this obstacle is also super annoying for actually like trying to take the points up here and down here for the opponent. So I would just straight up delete both of these blocks, and then I would erase this or this disease tile in the middle, because then you can fight in the middle and you can like try and run towards the bottom to fight the opponent's heart. And I think that would make for a pretty good map if they did that. But currently it's just going to go into the bad map tier for me. Again, maybe some people would argue it can be unplayable. I'm just going to put it in bad because I don't really think it's that good. Then we have Dark Sarcasm. Dark Sarcasm got reworked. It used to be incredibly bad before because it had, I believe it was a block right here and right here, if I remember correctly. That was really, really, really bad because it was just impossible to fight over anything. Like, there was no space to fight over ever, and both players would just sit back and do nothing and probably go Russell and just press the button over and over and over again. And it was like really, really boring to play on. You were also forced to go for Gravedigger every single game. After the rework, however, this map is going into the good map tier. This is a good example of a map that got reworked and now it's really, really good and fun. I would say this almost makes it into the great map tier. It just barely doesn't, because I think the heart should be moved a single tile further in. So if the heart goes here, probably, something like that, I think it would go into the great tier for me. Maybe it should be in the corner, I'm not entirely sure. It's either in the corner or it's right in front of the corner. Both things would be fine for me, probably. But I think that would slightly improve the map, and then it would be into the great maps tier. But currently I'm just going to place it in good maps instead. Then we have Dearly Departed. I think Dearly Departed is just a great map. This map has a bunch of panic points you can fight over in the middle here. You can fight for this top point. You can go for the opponent's stim pad and try and hit their heart that way with like flyers early on. This panic point down here are semi-contestable. It's still pretty difficult to contest because like a flyer can come out here and just hit you, but they can sometimes be fought over. This panic point right here and right here doesn't really bring anything to the map, but I think that's still fine. Gravedigger is optional here. You can choose to Gravedigger these blocks, and that makes it easier to fight over the middle, but you don't have to. You can play for flyers, or you can just play fast, or you can try and just like wrap around it. You can play pushers and pullers. Pretty much everything is viable here, which is a sign of a just very good map. So I think this is just great. Next up we have Desolation Row. Desolation Row is playable in my opinion. It's like bordering on being bad in my eyes, because it's just a little bit too aggressive. It's not quite at the like point where you just brain dead hard rush the opponent, just run at them and murder them, but it's still like it's close to that, because you have a very, very hard time defending the opponent just sitting back here with ranged phobies and hitting your heart. And the main reason for that is because this block next to the heart makes it very difficult to interact with anything that's in here. I think if they just remove this block in front, I think this map just becomes way better. You could maybe even argue that you could put more points in here, but I think the map probably already has enough points. So just erase that one block in front of them, and it would probably move up to either the good or maybe even great tier, depending on kind of how that plays out. But currently it's just going to go in playable because it's just a little bit too easy to hard rush on. Then we have Detention. Detention is the first map out of these that is going to go into the peak tier. I think Detention is very easily a contender for the best map design in the entire game. I think it's just fantastic. Everything about it is awesome. We have a heart that is very easy to attack if the opponent doesn't do anything, but if you are defending, you can easily defend it also from most things, so you just have to actively play the game. Gravedigger is optional because you can choose to break these blocks, and that makes it easier to defend the heart. You can also use Gravedigger to like block the opponent out. You can use Gravedigger to take points for free with at times by like growing here and then placing a block in front of him. There's a lot of things you can do with Gravedigger, but you're not forced to bring it. You can play fast on this map, you can play control on this map, you can play slow on it, you can play fast on it, you can play mid-range. Everything is viable. So this is just a great map. Even combo is viable here. You just have to slow the game down properly, and then you can do like a boss plus a cupcake combo if you want to do that, for example. So there's a whole lot of different things you can do, and both players are just like encouraged to interact with each other and actively play the game. And the reason why I think that's really awesome is because this map actually only has 2 contestable panic points. These 2 are like semi-contestable or even uncontestable because they are very close to the vaults. I would say they're even uncontestable, but it doesn't really work that way on this specific map, because if you take a point and you swing the panic points by a lot, you actually end up dealing a good chunk more damage to the heart. So if you're hard rushing and you take this point, it matters a lot because of how the like swinging works, and that is due to there being a even amount of panic points on the map. So that works in this map's favor. Like I said though, this is just fantastic design. I absolutely love this map. Every time this map is in rotation, even if the rest of rotation or like even if the rest of the rotation is like pretty bad, I still want to play the game just because this map is that good. So that is definitely a peak tier. Next up we have Diabolical. I think Diabolical goes into playable. Right now it's just a little bit too hard to actually fight on it, which turns it into a map that goes like... It goes from you like trying to take points early on, and then suddenly you're like, oh wait, I can't really fight the opponent now, the game is just gonna slow down a lot. It also feels like Gravedigger is like somewhat forced on it, because you have to break this block due to the map being slow. So you just want Gravedigger on almost every slow map because you get to manipulate the map to your advantage. So that is kind of bad for it. I think this map is quite easy to fix though. All you have to do is you remove this top block up here, and then you add a panic point right here. And I think that turns the map into a lot more of an interesting map, because that means you can suddenly go in here and you can start fighting that way. You can fight over the stim pads a lot more. You have a panic point out here, which you can try and take early on for more pressure, and it gives you another thing to fight over. And it also means that non-mechanical phobies can go in here onto the disease tiles, because there is going to be a single tile they can stand on. So I think that would like move the map up a lot. Currently, like, you're just gonna take these 3 points, which are difficult for the opponent to take because they're on your side of the map. Then you fight over this middle point for a little bit, and then it's just a stall map after that, kind of, which is not that fun. But if you do those changes that I mentioned right now, I think it would definitely go from being just a playable map to like definitely at least in the good tier, but probably even dropping into great tier. It would be a very big improvement to the map. Then we have Dilapidated Digs, I believe is how you pronounce this. This is a good map in my opinion. I think the heart can be a bit too difficult to attack due to all of the abyss tiles in front of it. Pushers are also maybe slightly too strong, and 3 rangers can feel a little bit difficult to deal with here. At least at times, it kind of depends on the game state. That is often the case in my opinion. I would say removing at least one of these abyss tiles in front of the hearts, these ones, maybe even both of them, would make this map a lot better. That's like what I would do for it, but it's still like a pretty decent map right now. It's just not, it's not quite at the point where it goes into the great tier, because the map just it feels like you take control of the panic points and then you're kind of just staring at the opponent, because actually hard rushing them is just a little bit too difficult. So that's kind of my issue with that map. Then we have Ergo Ltd. This is a bad map. There's only really one contestable panic point here, and it's the one right here at the top. The bottom panic points are too easily to defend, especially because you often break one of these two blocks on both sides, and that means you can just immediately take them. And they're also like in range of a lot of phobies from the vault, so you're just not going to be able to take these points down here, and that's not very fun. I think it also is a map where like you're forced to go Gravedigger. Like I said, you're gonna Gravedigger those blocks. You often also want to Gravedigger these ones, just because they kind of make it too difficult to set up an actual attack on the opponent. So that slows the game down by a lot if you have to use Gravedigger twice before the map is even somewhat playable. Yeah, there's like a lot of problems. Also, the stim pads make it too easy to defend right now, so that's also not good. There's really not a lot of good things to say right here. I think you should definitely have a panic point in the middle. That would improve the map a little bit, but I still don't really love the map even then. You could maybe remove the walls in the middle, but that's still not great. I think you can remove the stim pad or move the stim pads towards the middle so that you're fighting over them, and that would maybe make the map interesting. So let's say you put the stim pad here and you have panic point here, maybe lava here just to keep the lava around or something, and that maybe makes the map pretty good at that point. But that is a pretty significant change to how it looks, I would say. Maybe you try that out though, just because currently it's definitely going into the bad map tier. It is not very fun to play on. Then we have Eternal Monday. I think this is still in rotation right now, which it definitely shouldn't be. This is a bad map. I would even say it's a very bad map. The lava tiles in the middle just make it way too difficult for you to interact with the opponent. On top of that, it's also very common for people to bring Gravedigger on this map. They destroy this block right here, or this right here, and then suddenly this panic point is uncontestable. And that means you only actually have one panic point that you're fighting over, and it's the middle one. And that feels like really bad, because that's a very slow map then. It's just not great. You have to remove the lava to make this map fun, I think. That's pretty much where I am at this point. Like, the lava has to be removed. Maybe you like put it out here on the side just to have some lava on the map still. But you can't have it in the middle. It just makes the game unplayable. So I think they have to definitely get rid of those lava tiles. Then I think they also have to add another block near this so that you cannot just break the wall with a Gravedigger and make this a uncontestable panic point. But in order to do that, you have to place a block here, which means this block has to be destroyed. So we remove this block and we just put a block here and put a block here. So you have an open space here instead, and an open space here. That also gives you more options to go up to the top and attack the top panic point. So I think that would significantly improve the map. Would it still like be a perfect map? Probably not. I think that puts it in the good tier. It doesn't quite get to the great tier, but it would at least be a good map at that point, which would be a huge improvement from being a bad map still. So that has a lot of like potential to be made better. Next up, we have Evermore Pits. Evermore Pits is one of the maps that got reworked, but without them like changing the name and releasing a new one, which they did for the newer ones. This map used to have another abyss tile here and here, and then it didn't have these panic points. And that was incredibly bad. That was a very bad map. It was just not fun to play on, because like the only point you really fought over was the middle one in the middle, right here, surrounded by abyss tiles. And that's just way too slow, so you didn't even really fight over it. You just win the Kira and you tried to combo the opponent. It's a classic like type of map where you just only play for combo phobies and you don't interact with the opponent at all. You just like try to build up a giant combo over like 10 to 15 turns, and then you nuke the opponent out of the game. And that's just not fun. However, now that the map got changed, which was my suggestion by the way, I want to say that because I want to pat myself on the shoulder. The map got changed, so now we have these panic points here and here, and we have access to the middle with normal phobies. I think this map is now a great map, which means we went from a map that was down here to up here by redesigning it. That is a very, very good thing, by the way. In case any developers like watching this, this went from being a map that nobody liked or very few people liked, only people that didn't understand the game liked, let's be honest here. Any top player pretty much hated this, to now it's a map that everyone loves seeing in rotation. At least I have pretty much not seen anyone complain about it other than like 2 people on Reddit who really liked not playing the game, I guess. So overall, I think that is a great example of like you rework a map and it just becomes incredibly good. And there is actually already a couple of other examples of that too. So we might want to be reworking some more maps, because if you're looking at this right now, you will notice there's a lot of maps down here. Like, if we have too many maps down here, I would even say. So I would like to see a lot more reworks for the game. Then we have Exchange Raid. Exchange Raid is a great map. In my opinion, I think this map is just super good design. We have a lot of stuff to fight over. We have like the heart being very exposed. You fight over this like panic point using the stim pads a lot. You fight over these top 2 panic points a lot, because if you get control of your opponent's side of the panic point, it's very easy to hard rush them. But you can also defend that using flyers over here. Microscopic is really good. Gesundheit is even playable on this map, and that's a very bad phobia, so that's pretty cool. I think this map is just great. I am personally not a great fan of it, or a big fan of it. I actually kind of don't enjoy this map a lot of the time, but I still think it is just a great map. It's also a little bit more fun to play at level 1, so if they ever do correct map scaling, I imagine I would like the map more. But, I mean, currently I don't love the map, but it's a great map. Which is weird to say, but it's definitely going into the great tier. Then we have Exponential Decay. I think Exponential Decay is a bad map, but it is very close to being unplayable. It's like bordering on playable, and even in this state. And I think if you just make some very small changes to this map, it instantly like jumps onto being in the great tier. It is like very, very close design-wise to jumping into being a great map. The problem with this map currently is that it's a map where you often see the red player taking this panic point, and the blue player takes this panic point and this panic point. Sometimes you will see a match where like both players go flyers, and then the red player takes these 2 instead, and the blue player takes these 2 instead. But that's a bit more rare. Either way though, both players end up with 2 panic points on their sides, and then you just fight over the middle, and there's only 1 panic point there, and these blocks are kind of preventing you from fighting. Then on top of that, the heart is very far away, which makes it very difficult to actually approach and hit it. And it's also kind of close to the vault, so if you like walk up here and you try and hit my heart with a couple of phobies up here, I summon hero 3.0, I lob at you, and you lose the game. That's not very fun. So that's kind of the issues with this currently. I think, however, if you just like swap the heart with this block, you like move the heart here, make a block here, remove the blue heart here and make a block here, you're already going from being a bad map to being a good map at that point. And then I think you could maybe add slightly more panic points. I think it would be interesting if we actually remove this abyss tile right here, and then added a panic point here and here. That would like lead to matches being a bit more explosive when you actually get on the opponent's heart. Maybe that's not healthy. I don't know if it is. I would have to playtest it to see if that's great or not. But if you don't want to do that, you could also just place some panic points like maybe here and here. That would be pretty good. You could put them up here and here instead if you don't like that. There's a very large amount of places where you could try and place panic points to make the game more fun. But the key point is just that the heart has to move in. That is like the big thing here, because currently not being able to attack the heart is making the game way too slow. And then you can add some more panic points if you want people to fight more, which is probably healthy for the game. So I think if you do either the idea where you like have the panic points out here and the hearts here, and you destroy this abyss block, or you do the idea where you just have the hearts out here and you maybe add some more like panic points in near the middle somewhere, then this map would definitely go from being in the bad tier to jumping all the way up to the great tier. So there's a ton of potential for that map to be super fun to play on, but currently it's just not quite there. Then we have Fornacified. This map is atrocious to look at. It's really, really bad. I think this is like nearly unfixable while keeping the same map skeleton. What I mean by that is like without completely changing how the map looks, it is just borderline unfixable. So I wouldn't even try and fix it. I would just delete it, which is also what they've done. It's just a very bad map. It's going into the bad tier. Then we have Goosey Gander. I am a big fan of Goosey Gander. I think this map is fantastic. We have semi-contestable panic points here and here that are like ones that you can take when you are hard rushing, but the opponent can defend them very easily early on using flyers and even just small phobies. Then we have contestable panic points here and here. Is you can make an argument that maybe the corner points are only semi-contestable too. That kind of depends on how you look at it. We have very open hearts, and then we have a healing spa that you fight over. This is very good because a healing spa in the middle just means that like it's active in a way where players will want to actually use it, or where you cannot use it for free. So you have to go in when you want to use it, and that is very healthy, I think. Overall, I just think this map is great. I also think that being able to fly over here with Phobies is really fun because you can like bring Microscopic or you can bring Tooth Fairy early on and you can play aggressive that way, and that's very healthy. Overall, this is just a great map. It's one of the best out of the new maps they've created like during recent times. Then we have Gridlock. Gridlock is a good map. I think terraforming is slightly too forced here, and it is played pretty much every game by both players. Other than that, it feels pretty decent and it's generally fun to play on. I would say, like I said, it's gonna go into the good map tier. I think you can maybe slightly improve it by like opening up the sides so that you aren't forced to go Gravedigger. So you could like remove this obstacle on both sides. And then I would say that you maybe add an Abyss tile right here and right here, because that way you are keeping this panic point uncontestable, or at least semi-contestable, or you're making it contestable, I guess, because right now it's not really contestable. So you're making the panic point better that way by adding the Abyss tile, because if you just remove the block, then you just walk onto this directly with a 1 key, and you can never really take it as the opponent. So I think that would make the map better. You can also do a weird thing where you like remove a bunch of these Abyss tiles and you create like a wall surrounding this with like an Abyss tile here, and you put a block here and some panic points in here. But that is a very big redesign for the map. I think that would also make for a great map, but that is quite a significant change. So I think just removing like that one block and adding in the Abyss tile would move it from being a good map to a great map, which is still like a significant improvement, but it's not something that should be super high priority because it's already fairly fun to play on. Next up, we have Hall of Mirrors. Hall of Mirrors is just straight up a bad map. It has potential to be a good map or great map if we change it quite a lot, but currently we are in a spot where the vault is like too far in, and that means that you can reach all of the panic points too easily, and it's very difficult to actually fight over them. And vault sniping is just way too like apparent on the map. It's what happens like all the time, so that makes it kind of unfun because it's very difficult to actually fight without you going in and then just summoning like a Jin Sting or a Murdering or something and killing whatever phobia you went in with. So you often end up just like trading 1 keys for a while, which is not very exciting. And then you try and like maybe poke the opponent, or you bring a big phobia and try to push. But it could be made way better. All we have to do is we move the vault into the corner here, so we end up with the walls in the corners for both players. Then we take this poison tile and we also move that back with it so that we're not blocking the turrets from being able to walk out here. That already makes the map way better. But then on top of that, I think the heart has to be a little bit more vulnerable. I would say that you probably like move it just one tile forward and maybe you get rid of this block and like place a poison block behind it or something weird. You could do something like that, and I think that would be pretty healthy. You could also maybe just move it down a tile and destroy this like block in front, and that could be fine. I don't know exactly what you need to do with the heart, but the vault definitely has to move back one tile, and that would just instantly improve the map a lot. And you have to move the poison tile back with it, because otherwise you can only ever play bomb angles, and that's not fun at all. So currently a bad map, but they could make it into a good map if they rework it in the right way. Next up is Hold Still. I think Hold Still is a playable map. It needs another couple panic points to fight over, because currently it's just a little bit too slow. But otherwise, it has a very good map skeleton, in my opinion. Currently, it just ends up with you take this point as blue player, you take this point as blue player, you take this as red player, you take this as red player. Then you maybe trade over this panic point a couple times with one keys, and you try to fight at the top. And that's like fine, but it's a little bit too little action in my opinion. So we just want some more panic points in here. I think you add a panic point here and one at the top. You could maybe make an argument to move these panic points one tile further in each also. I think that would be more exciting, but you don't even have to do that at the bottom. You just need these two panic points at the top for sure. I would personally prefer moving these two one tile in, but you don't have to. Like, that's just personal preference. And then you can maybe make an argument to destroy this block, but I actually kind of like the blocks being there because it makes Gravedigger like an optional phobie that you can play around and like make your playstyle, but you don't have to go Gravedigger. I sometimes play here without using Gravedigger at all, and it's like perfectly viable. But again, that depends on how you like want to look at it in terms of like design philosophy and stuff like that. But either option is fine. You just need the panic points at the top. Like, those two panic points have to happen for this map to become great. So right now it's just going to go into playable, but it could very easily jump into great tier if they just add a couple more panic points at the top. Then we have Home Sweet Home. This is a bad map because there just isn't quite enough to fight over, and the heart is way too difficult to attack. So currently each player just takes this point up here, which is pretty easy to take and defend because there's no real pressure on your heart. And then you maybe trade one keys a couple times for this middle point, and that's pretty boring. However, I think it's pretty easy to fix this map. You just destroy this block up here and replace it with a panic point, and then you move the heart in one tile. I'm not actually sure if it should be going here or here. It's kind of hard to say without getting to play test it, but it should be in either of those two spots, and that instantly makes the map either good or even great. So it has, again, a lot of potential to be good. There's actually a lot of their maps that have pretty good skeletons, but they're just like a slight bit away from actually becoming great maps, and instead they end up being bad. So, like I've said a lot of times now, this has a lot of potential, but currently it is a bad map. Then we have HR Violation. This map is horrible. Horrible map design. I don't have a single good thing about this map to say. It is just really, really bad in every single way. It is actually so bad that when they introduced it to the game, I almost quit Phobies. That is how bad this map is. It is just torture to play on. It's horrible. There's like nothing good to really say about it. You have no contestable panic point. The heart is in Narnia. Like, there's a bunch of blocks and lava in the middle, so you can't fight either. It's straight up just horrible. Actually, I think I'm gonna add another tier for this map even. Let's make this gray to show how dull it is. And then, what should we call this? Oh, you can't really see that when I make it gray. Let me make it a lighter gray then. I think we're gonna call that Burn It With Fire. That is maps that just shouldn't be allowed to exist. It is just absolutely atrocious. The fact that you even put this in the game should be embarrassing for whoever's like playtesting. This map is horrible. Or for whoever's like making the decision of putting it into the game. I guess the playtester could have told them that this map is horrible and they could just put it in anyway. But this just, like, what I'm saying is just this map is just the worst designed map in the game, probably. Like, you definitely couldn't make a worse map than this, almost. You would have to just only have lava tiles, or only have abyss tiles to make a worse map. It is horrible to play on. Honestly, even if you make a map with only lava tiles, you could probably make it better than this. That is how bad this map is. So we're leaving that down there. Actually, we should probably move Center Stage down there too. It's definitely in the same category in that it's just a horrible map. It's not quite as bad, but it's still really, really, really bad. But HR Violation is, like, honestly, it deserves having an extra tier that is just called Burn It With Fire. Because that map is atrocious. Don't ever make a map like this again, please. It was just so unfun to play on. I had matches there that lasted more than 100 turns, by the way. That is how bad it is. Next up, we have Ill Intent. Ill Intent is a bad map. It needs another panic point in the middle, and to remove some of the disease tiles at the very least. This probably moves it into playable, maybe good, probably not even good. You could replace the stim pad at the top with a panic point, or just like delete the stim entirely. I don't know exactly how you would do this, but there's definitely some things you could do to make this map better. Currently, there's just not enough space that you can stand on with normal phobies. That means you're forced to go for mechanicals. It's difficult to actually attack the opponent because they just sit here with something and then you can't attack the heart ever. And the stim pad is hard to actually use because if you take control of the stim pad, they just move back here and you can't really sit like near it because of all the disease tiles. There's so many issues here. I think, like I said, they have to move a panic point into the middle or just create a panic point in the middle. They have to destroy these two disease tiles. That is the bare minimum to make it even playable. Then after that, I think you move the panic points further in and you maybe get rid of the stim pad. You can either like move the panic points here and keep the stim pad maybe, or you can like put a panic point here and then have the stim pad sit here maybe. And that would be fine, maybe. Or maybe you even just put a panic point here and you keep these panic points also. That could be pretty exciting. So we end up with a map that looks like this. Either way, what I'm getting at here is you have to make quite a lot of changes for this to be a fun map. You can probably still keep the identity of the map though. So I think it's like possible for them to make a good version of this. Currently, though, it's going into the bad tier, which is unfortunate. Because, as you can see, we have quite a lot of bad phobia or bad maps now. There's so many in the bad tier already. Then we have It's the Pits as the next one. It's the Pits is actually a good map. I think it is a little bit too displacement oriented for newer players who don't have enough flyers and displacement phobies. But you can actually play on this map with only a small number of those. Like, if you have Murdering Tooth Fairy and Miss Muffet, that's kind of already enough to actually have fun on this map, in my opinion. But at higher levels where everyone has everything, it feels pretty fun to play on, in my opinion. So I wouldn't be changing this too much. Maybe we should just give new players another flyer or something so that we're making sure that everyone has enough flyers. That could be a thing that they do to maybe make the whole flyer issue a little bit less annoying. But I'm just going to be putting it into the good tier. It's not quite enough or quite good enough to go into the great tier because of the displacement issue. But definitely not a bad map. Then we have Last Rites. I think this is a good map. It feels a little bit too boring at times, but I still think it's a decent map. You can have some very big shifts in control on this map, where you're you go from being in a position where it looks like you are having some amount of control, to suddenly you're basically just dead, because it's like very swingy. And the reason for that is you have to take control of these bottom points before you can hard rush, but once you then have control of them, you have to go up here and try and hard rush the opponent, and that means that your bottom side becomes weaker, so the opponent can recapture them, but you get to actually punch the heart, and the opponent has to recapture and force you away at the same time. This creates like a weird thing where like it's kind of like a wave thing almost, where you like slowly take control of the bottom and then suddenly the map just explodes. I think that's pretty exciting, but like I said, it's a little bit weird because sometimes it takes too long for it to explode and then it becomes a stall map, and that's not very fun. So I can't really put this in the great tier, but I still think it's a good map. Usually it's fairly fun to play on this. I think I would personally move this panic point down at the bottom one tile in so that it ends up here, and then I would maybe consider putting a block here so that you cannot break the block and just go to it that way. And that would make that panic point a little bit more contestable. As a matter of fact, it would make it much more contestable. And I think that would make this map a little bit better. I still don't think it would really get into the great tier, but it would just be a better, good map, I guess you can call it. So there's like very slight room for improvement. I still don't think it comes into the great tier after that, but it's a good map, so I'm not unhappy to see this. I think it's fairly fun most of the time. Then we have Lava-ble Ring. This map is bad. It definitely goes into the bad map tier. That's not to say you can't have fun on this map. You just have to have both players have Prometheus and or Charon, and one player can't have Prometheus where the other doesn't have it. So that's like the requirement to play on this map basically. If you don't have any of those two Phobies, or if you have Prometheus and they only have Charon, then the map becomes way less fun, which means that this map is definitely way too collection dependent, and it's also a little bit too difficult to fight early on due to all of the lava tiles. So I think they have a very good base for a map, but the lava tiles is just a little bit too much. There's a lot of small maps that have too much lava in the middle, and it makes them way less fun than they could have been. So I think all you have to do here is you remove this lava tile, you remove this lava tile, move this lava tile, and you remove this lava tile, and then suddenly you go from having a bad map to having a great map. It will straight up jump into the great tier if you just do that. There is probably, technically speaking, also another rework you could do where you like have this be a panic point and then you remove this lava tile instead, and that would be playable maybe. But I think the other version is probably better, so you should just remove those two lava tiles at the top and bottom on both sides, and that's easier, and neatly you still make a circle if you do that, so it can keep the name and it still looks good, and the map just becomes way more fun. So hopefully they do that in the future, because like making a map go from bad map to great map is a very big deal for how fun the game is. Next up we have Lights Out. This is a horrible map. It is almost in the tier where I would put it and burn it with fire, but probably not quite. It feels really bad to play on though, because both players often break this top block. Then this panic point is uncontestable. This panic point down here is far too difficult to actually take as the opposing player, because you can't really move in there. The lava prevents you from interacting with the opponent. The heart is way too far back on both sides, obviously. And that just means you have a complete stall maps where neither player do anything. You place a 3-range phobie on this tile, and then you just stare at each other without doing anything for a very long time. And that is not very fun. I think you can make this map a lot better by like placing a panic point here, moving the heart further in, so maybe the heart goes here, or even here. In any of those three spots it could go. And then you maybe make some changes to the lava on top of that. Then it could become a good map. You could also argue that maybe we place another block here and another block here, and we destroy this block. That could maybe be a change you do. There's a lot of different changes you could do, but it's going to change how the map looks quite significantly. So if they want to keep the same look on the map, they just shouldn't have that map exist. So either you change it quite significantly and you maybe give it a new name, or you just call it Lights Out 2 or something, and then it can be maybe decent or even good, or you just don't add it into rotation again, because this is not in rotation anymore, because it was very unfun to play on. Like I said, this is probably in the bad tier, but it's bordering on going into Burn It With Fire. It is really, really bad. Next up, we have Like and Subscribe. This is another bad map. We have panic points here on the sides, which are just way too difficult to contest. As a matter of fact, this one down here and this one up here are literally uncontestable because they're too close to the vault. Then we have panic points here, or the panic point in the middle here, where both players will break this block, so that also becomes a panic point you can immediately take with a 1 key. We have a ton of walls in the middle, which means that you can't really fight the opponent. You can use the stim pad defensively a lot of the time, especially during the early and mid game. And then we have a heart that is super far back, making it quite difficult to actually attack. So overall, this map is just another stall map where you sit still, you do nothing, you bang for a Kira, and then you blow the opponent up. Sometimes you lose when you do that, when the opponent just plays a bunch of Blastomatics and stuff. But that's just control versus combo, and that's like very boring. So overall, just a very bad map. I think you can try something where you like, maybe you move the heart 1 tile further in, you add some more panic points, you add another block in front here, you remove this block, you maybe move the stim pad 1 tile out, or you move it into the side, you move the panic points 1 tile in, and suddenly you're looking at a completely different map. You could do that and have it be playable, but you're gonna change the map very significantly. You could also try something where you swap the heart and the block here, so you end up with a heart here and a block here, a heart here and a block here, and then you swipe the panic points further in again. So this panic point goes here, this panic point goes here, this panic point goes here, this goes here maybe. You maybe don't even have to like remove this if there's a block in front and you add another block, but that's kind of arguable. But what that would do is it would create a map where you can like attack the enemy hard because it's very close to your vault. You would probably still need to like destroy this block first though, so you could try that again. That's gonna be a very different and maybe even completely different map. Overall, this is just bad design, so it's gonna be quite difficult to fix. Next up, we have Locker Room Funk. This is a map that I hope they will rework because it's quite unique in that it has no walls and it's just a bunch of like poison tiles and open tiles, which is very unique. It is, however, currently a bad map, and that is also why it's not in rotation. All you pretty much have to do is to change it so that you have more contestable panic points, because currently you only have 1 contestable panic point right here, and that makes the map really annoying to play on. Cast had an idea where we used the heart to block for a panic point, and I think that sounds super fun. So we will place the hearts here and here, and then you have a panic point here, here in the middle still, and here, and you just keep this panic point, and you maybe place like poison here, and you remove this poison. Maybe I shouldn't be making this in the map creator just to actually show how it looks, because that's a little bit too difficult to actually see here. Let's just quickly do this map in the creator instead. So you would end up with the heart here and the heart here. Then you do panic point, panic point, panic point, panic point, panic point. And these panic points are still uncontestable to some degree, but that's fine because you have 3 contestable ones in the middle. So there's enough contestable panic points. And then you just have all of the poison in here again that's like flowing around the entire map. You know how it looked. I can't remember the exact tiles you had them on, but there was a bunch of poison in here like this. This would be around how it would look, probably. Maybe you remove some of the poison tiles just to like open it up slightly more. Like, could maybe do that, and then you throw it in here. Something like that, maybe. I'm not even sure if that's more open. you can play around with the poison tile, so maybe you do something like this. But I think this would be a super fun map to play on. So this is like an example where you could take a bad map again and make it very, very fun and also very unique, because there is really no map that looks like that at all in the game right now. So I think that would be pretty exciting. But for now, it's just going to go into the bad map tier. If they created that type of map that I showed you there, which was pretty much exactly what Cast suggested, I think that would actually jump all the way up into the great tier. Like, that looks both very unique, very cool. It looks like there's a lot of different things you can play on it. You're not forced into mechanicals, and it's just fun. I believe the map that Cast created actually had a healing spot in the corners also, which I think is actually a good idea on top of that, because that means that you can play normal Phobies without worrying about getting poisoned too much. But by having it in the corner, it's not really it's not a healing tile that you can just abuse. You have to lose tempo to use it. So that would be a good rework, but currently it's just a bad map. Next up we have Lonesome Town, which I have a very bad picture for, but this was the only picture I could find of it. This map is definitely bad. It is way too easy to play super aggressive and just hard rush on this map, because you just like run up here and hit the opponent's hard over and over. When this map was in rotation, I think I had several matches. I even made a post about it, I believe, where I killed people in like turn 8 or turn 9 a lot of the time. And that means I'm only taking 4 or 5 turns and the game is over. That is obviously way too fast, and it's way too aggro favored, and you couldn't even really defend it. So this map needs a significant amount of changes. You need the heart to be moved into a position where you can't attack it as well. Maybe it goes all the way back here somewhere, or maybe you place it here, or even here. I don't know exactly where it should go. Maybe it's here even. But it definitely needs to move to a spot where it is not easily attacked. And then on top of that, we should add some more panic points. So there should be like panic points here and here maybe. That would make the map a lot better, I would say, if you did something like that. But currently it's just straight up a bad map, because it's way too easy to hard rush on, which is not good. Then we have Magmificent as the next one. This is a pretty good map. I think there's a lot of like room for improvement by adding some more panic points. Currently there's just not quite enough to fight over, but overall it's still a good map. I think if you want to improve it, you add a panic point here and here maybe, and maybe even here, and that would definitely be enough to fight over. Then you could make an argument that this maybe ends up being too many panic points. I don't know if that's true. Maybe you only do the ones at the top, or maybe you create a panic point in the middle like this, and then you add the blocks in another spot, like you put a block here instead or something. I don't know if that's better or not, but you definitely just want slightly more panic points in here, and then this becomes a very fun and good map. Could maybe also make an argument to move the hard one tile further in. I don't know if that's good or not. If you move the hard one tile further in, then you can hit from up here, which means you don't have to go on lava to hit the hard, or like stand up here. But that might become too hard rushy then. Currently, I just think it needs like slightly more to fight over, and then it becomes really good. So currently a good map, could move into great tier with just slightly more panic points. Also, fun fact, this is one of the only maps in the game where I actually think it's optimal to go snowball turn 1 as player 1. Like, you pretty much always go snowball here with a 1 key out here. And that is just the best thing you can possibly do. Because it's just way too easy to take a bunch of points and the opponent can't really fight back. And it's easy to actually defend the points also because of all the lava. So snowball actually works well here, which is a bit of an outlier because normally snowball turn 1 is a mistake. Then we have Mazeophob. Mazeophob is a bad map. This is another map that is bad because you just play hyper aggro and you kill the heart in 8 turns or 9 turns, and the opponent cannot defend at all. As you can see down here, there is no way for the opposing player to defend their heart really because of these blocks, and the heart is also blocking them. If you have to break to get in here, you have to break 2 blocks, which takes way too long when you're dying in like 4 or 5 turns. So that's just never gonna happen. And that just means that the rest of the map doesn't matter at all. because you're just hard rushing no matter what, and that's very unfun in my opinion. I think that's unfun in everyone's opinion pretty much. So what players would do when this map was in the game is we would go squiggles turn 1 to this point with double 1 key, 1 here and 1 here. Then you take this corner point with a 1 key, you take this point or this point with your other 1 key. You run down here with squiggles and you just hit with squiggles over and over in the heart. You bring maybe a fast flyer here because you can fly directly down here really quickly. Or you bring just a fast phobie like a Gin Sting or something that can hit and deal a bunch of damage, and you just murder the opponent without them getting to play the game. People tried to counterplay this by like going spot here and then having a Gargles fly in here and try and block down there, and then they broke this block and they tried to run here, but in like 90% of cases you died before you could do that, and it was just not very fun. In order to make this map better, you would have to, at the very minimum, move the heart back 1 tile and remove this block in front of it. So the hearts end up here and we remove this block, maybe even this block over here too. And then other than that, you would have to start looking at, then it becomes maybe too slow because there's just not enough panic points to fight over because there's only really these 2 in the middle. The rest of the panic points are very difficult to contest. But it's also hard to add more panic points into the map. So it's kind of difficult to redesign in a way where it will become great. But currently it's just like a bad map, which is why it's not in the game and it hasn't been in the game for a very long time, because you just hard rushed and the game was over in 8 turns, and that's very unfun for both players. Next up we have Megalo. Megalo is also a bad map. This map only has 1 contestable panic point, which instantly makes a map bad. You only have this panic point to fight over. These other panic points are reachable with the vault, which makes them uncontestable. On top of that, the hearts are hidden behind blocks, which makes it very difficult to actually fight. So you just end up stalling this game out. You like break this block, you put in Inoculus on that tile, and then you don't do anything for 12 turns. And then you try and nuke the opponent out of the game, or you play Russell. And that's all that happens here every single time if both players are good at the game. So that is very unfun. I think they can fix this by like moving the panic points 1 tile in each, removing this panic point, and then they have to move the heart. Either they move the heart to here, which I am not a huge fan of, or they remove this block entirely and just place a block over here instead. And then they move the heart down here, which I am a bigger fan of, because that is just better, I think. It makes taking this point and hitting the heart kind of rewarding for the opponent, so that makes the game a lot more active. And I think that would make for a great map. Again, this is a lot of changes, but essentially just imagine that this block isn't here, there's a heart here instead, and the panic point is 1 in, and then this block is also gone. That's all I really want to do, and that still kind of keeps the structure of the map. But currently it's a bad map. Again, if they change that, it instantly jumps up into either good or great. So a lot of improvement that can be done very easily. Then we have Moai. I think Moai goes into playable, but it is like bordering on going into bad maps for me, because it just feels like playing aggressive is a bit too strong. You can go very aggressive and just kill the opponent very easily if they just have 1 slightly slow turn, or if they like defend slightly incorrectly, or they don't have the right phobie, or you're slightly over leveled. You just murder them without interacting really, and you don't even have to take panic points first, which is very unfun. I think this is easy to fix though. All you really have to do is you just move the heart back 1 tile to here. And that's pretty much it, and the map is already way better. If you do that, you could also add another panic point, which could be either here, here, or maybe in here. But that's kind of bad because it's like in the range of the vault, so I probably wouldn't place it there. But you could place it in any of those places, and obviously the same up here. Either of those, and that would be very good. I would probably prefer up here behind the block like that. And then we have the heart here and the heart here. I think if they do that, it goes from a playable map to being a great map. I will say this map is less bad at level 1s maybe it goes into being like good there, but it's probably still bordering on being too hard rushy. But when you have levels included and you have like map scaling and stuff, then it's like definitely a little bit too hard rushy. So this goes into playable only. It is very like close to being super fun though. Like, I think if they make those changes, not only does it move up to great tier, I think it probably jumps into peak even. Because that, like, this map is a map where if you are not in the like situation where one player just instantly hard rushes the other, this map is actually super fun to play on. So very close to being a great map. Then we have Morbidity. Morbidity is a map that I absolutely adore, and I also think it is incredibly good map design. This is probably one of the best map designs in the entire game, and I actually think it goes into the peak tier because of it. There is not a single tile that I would change or add here. I think it is just fantastic. We have a heart that is very open, but it is defended by this conveyor tile where you can place slow phobies on if you want to play slower. You can also run in here pretty quickly to defend it. There is panic points around it that you want to take, so you actively go towards the opponent's heart. However, there's also these disease tiles which actually add to the map, because you can like go up here and choose to attack the opponent's heart while getting diseased, which is pretty fun. Like, you are taking damage, but you're putting a ton of pressure on the opponent, because that is difficult to defend due to not having enough space to really hit back here. So that's pretty cool. We have these conveyor tiles which add a lot to the map, because there's a lot of like micro managing these, where you like constantly want a phobie moving on them to like threatening a double hit here or invading the opponent and fighting them. There's like flyers going out here and taking this panic point and maybe trying to fly to the corner early on to play fast. There's the fact that you can place a 1 key behind your heart on turn 1 to go contest the bottom point, which is really cool. There's just so many great things about this map that feel awesome when you're playing it. I don't think I've had a single like match on this map that wasn't fun. Even against over-level players, it feels like I can win. And against under-level players, I still have to like actually look at the map to not suddenly lose to a push or a pull happening, or to them using the conveyor tiles correctly, or suddenly hard rushing me. So I think this is just incredibly good map design. This is if you ask me what is the best thing we can do with conveyors, I would show you this map. That is like how great it is. This is like pinnacle of conveyor using, if you can put it that way. Then we have Mount Blight. Mount Blight is a bad map. The heart is just way too far back, and that makes it very easy to defend with the double vaults, and too many of the panic points become uncontestable because of the double vaults too. So it just needs a vault removed, and that will suddenly or instantly make it a good chunk better. There's a couple different versions you could test. You can either remove this vault and this vault, so you end up with like vaults on each side, and then maybe you move the heart down here, or you could keep the heart in the same position. I would like to see it move down here, or even just one tile in, and I think that's pretty good. You can also do a change where you instead choose to remove both of these vaults and instead put a vault in each corner. So we end up with a vault here and a vault here. And that makes the game very cool, in my opinion, because then the only uncontestable panic point is this one, and the rest of them are ones that you can technically speaking contest, even though these two and these two are favoring one player a lot. These two ones you're going to be fighting a lot over, and you still have to, as the blue player, go down here and defend your heart, because otherwise the red player can run out here and they can start just hitting your heart really easily and kill it. If you do that like version with the keyholes or the vaults in the corners, maybe you have to move the heart in slightly to make it less like attackable, because it could end up being too aggressive. But I think there's a lot of potential if you move the like maps around or delete the maps in the right way, and then maybe also move the heart around a little bit. It could also be that it's enough if you just like put the heart here and remove this, and you remove this, and put the heart here. That could also be enough for the map to suddenly be very fun to play. So I think there's a good amount of potential, but currently it's just not there. It's a bad map. You will notice that the bad map tier is very full at this point. That's just how it is. But a lot of them have potential to be really good with just minor reworks. So they could suddenly make the game super fun if they decide to do that. Then we have Muso Meia. Muso Meia is a good map. I think the disease tile near the vault needs to go, since it lowers like diversity or variety in this map a lot. It means that playing slow non-mechs is like pretty much impossible, or at least very rare on the map. I would also like to see another penny point somewhere on it, although I'm not quite sure exactly where it should go. That's kind of difficult to say exactly. I think you definitely remove this particular disease tile that is preventing the game from being fun at times. And then after that, maybe you add a penny point somewhere. There could be a penny point here, for example. That could be pretty interesting. Could also be that we like remove a block here and then we have the penny point somewhere else. I don't know exactly how you want to do this. You could have penny points here and here, but I think that's actually worse than the middle one, so probably not. But I feel like having another penny point would be good for this map. It's just hard to actually place one in here, other than like placing it here. But those feel like they're like maybe in a bit of a weird spot. So I don't know if that's right. Maybe you should just remove the disease tile and accept that it's just going to be a good map, but not a great one. Which is also, like I said, we are happy with good maps, because as you can see, there are more maps in the bad tier than the great maps and the good maps tier combined right now. So we are very happy with good maps. That's more than enough. Then we have Muso Meia. Muso Meia is a bad map. This is another map where double walls just makes it way too slow. The heart and the middle being walled off this much also means that you're forced to bring a gravedigger, and that slows the game down even further. I think they should remove the middle walls and then delete the blocks near the heart so that you don't have to go gravedigger. So we remove these two walls, then we remove this block and this block, and then after that I would prefer if they also move these penny points further in, so we put them up here and down here. And I think that would make it a very good map. It's probably still only in the good tier, it's not quite in the great tier, but it would be a very significant improvement to the map and would be a lot more fun to play on, I think. Maybe it would even make it into great map. I'm not sure, because I haven't played on something like that. Like, it's a very different map if you make it like that. So it would be a lot more unique and fun. But I'm not sure exactly if it goes into good or great tier with that change, but it's definitely way better. Currently on this map, you just break this block with Gravedigger, then you like go up here, you break this block, you try and hit the opponent's heart. You don't fight over the middle because you can't really, and you just like, the opponent is defending using the stim pad, and the game is relatively slow until one player like gets control near the opponent's heart and then they kill them. It's not very fun, I think. I think it's like, it's both a stall map and a map where once you lose control, it feels like there's no way of coming back. So overall, it's just not very good to me right now. It's definitely going into the bad map tier 2. Next up, we have Naughts and Crosses. I think Naughts and Crosses is just a great map. There is literally nothing bad to say about this map, in my opinion. It just feels good to play on every time. We have a ton of contestable penny points up here at the top. This is probably like semi-contestable, these two, but these three at the top are at least very contestable. The stim pad means that you're fighting a lot over control of the top side. The hearts are exposed, but not to the point where you cannot defend them. We have a healing spot that is far enough back that you lose tempo from using it. Overall, it's just great to play on. Like I said, I don't have anything bad to say about this map. It's just gonna go straight into the great tier. Overall, just a fantastic map. And we have Never Forever. Never Forever is a bad map. The reason for that is there's only one really contestable panic point here, and the hearts are also very far away. What that means is both players are just going to stare at each other for a while until they have a giant phobia out on the conveyor, and then some kind of like pull phobia or like thing that can start a fight out there alongside that. And then you clash with each other's giant thing, and one player has the better big stuff, and they win. That's pretty much all that ever happens on this map in my experience, and that is not very fun. I will say, however, this map is very unique, so it's kind of a shame that it's so difficult to make it work, because you can't really change this to have more contestable panic points, because then you're breaking up this conveyor line, which is the map's entire identity, so it's not very easy to do. Maybe you try and do something weird where you like move the heart further in here and keep a block back here, obviously, and then you like move this panic point one tile out on each side, and that makes it slightly less slow, and you can maybe play aggressive there, but it's probably still too hard to play aggressive if we're being honest, even in that like kind of world where we have a map like that. So I don't know exactly what you can do. I had the funny idea of maybe adding like a cluster of panic points, so you just have panic points all around here. Maybe could potentially skip those final 2 ones, but you just have a bunch of panic points in the middle, which would also be unique because we don't have any map right now where there are panic points next to each other. So maybe we have just some points here and here, and then you can suddenly try and play aggressive on this map, I think, because then you can do a thing where you like have some 1-keys that go on the conveyor that try and take these points early on and then try and attack the heart after that. Maybe you wouldn't even need to swap the heart around if you're doing that kind of map. But what I'm saying here is it needs very significant changes without changing these conveyor tiles in order for the map to become even somewhat good. So currently it's pretty bad. But I think it would be nice if they explored a version with like I said, panic points like this. I think that would be much more exciting to try, because suddenly there's enough points that you can maybe threaten the heart and you're not just banking for Cerberus or the Glob or like Blastomatic, whatever big phobia you normally go for. Next up is Night Shift. Night Shift is playable. I think this is like bordering on being good, but I'm just gonna put it in playable because I think it's probably closer to that. I am personally not a big fan of this map, like at all. It just has never felt good to me. I can't exactly explain why. I think it's because there's like so little space here to walk into the middle or something. But even when I break the block, it doesn't feel great to me. There's just something about this map that I don't love, but I don't think it's horribly designed. It needs like one more panic point into the middle here, and then it definitely goes into the good tier. Still won't like it, but it would make the map at least good. Currently though, I'm just going to put it in playable, but it would definitely move up here with that extra panic point. I would still not really like it, but I don't think I'm ever going to like that map. It's just not really a map that's made for me, I guess. Then we have Opticon. This is a bad map. The hearts are way too far back. There's only 2 contestable panic points, both of which are very close to stim pads on either side, which makes them pretty difficult to contest. So I would argue they're not even really fully contestable. And the double vault thing, again, is making it way too easy to like take control of the map. So that just means that this map is way too slow, and there's also so many blocks on it that it's very difficult to actually set up fights and try and kill the opponent's stuff. I think in order to make this map better, they have to erase a vault again. You could either remove the top or bottom. I guess we'll just do it like this time. It could also be the other way around, depending on what you prefer. I think that is the bare minimum. And on top of that, I would probably like to see a panic point in the middle, or for the heart to be moved in. So either we move the heart in here somewhere, or we add some panic points. So you could have panic point here, panic point here. That would be a fine version of the map. You could also choose to say we put the heart here and the heart here. Maybe we remove these blocks in front and we like put a panic point here and move the blocks here or something. That's maybe another version of the map. That's changing the middle quite a bit, but it just depends on which version you want. I think the version where you just add the panic points here keeps the original more, so that's probably what they would go for. But that would be a good rework for this, and it would put it into the good map tier at the very least. Currently though, it's a bad map. Then we have Phasmophobia as the next one. Phasmophobia is a good map. I think this map is pretty close to being a great map, but not quite. Maybe it's not even a good map. Maybe it's playable. I think it's probably unplayable, just because it borders on being a little bit too slow. It just needs a couple more panic points, and then it becomes really good. But right now, you often don't fight over this top panic point at all, because it's too close, and you would rather go down here near the hearts. It's too close to your vaults. So you fight over this point for the first couple turns, and then you fight over this point and control of the hearts. And due to there not being enough panic points here, you often don't end up actually hard rushing. You fight over the points for a little bit, then the map kind of becomes too slow and you end up in a stalemate. Then you bring Agora and you try to pull the opponent into these. You probably have another displacement phobia, like maybe a Miss Muffet, alongside the Agora, and then you're just playing for that. It's pretty easy to fix though. I think you just add a panic point here, a panic point here, and potentially a panic point here. And then the map is great, because you have enough panic points to contest that you have to play fast. The panic point at the top means that you're actually able to fight for the top side a little bit more too, which is fun, so that you're not just running towards the bottom without caring about the top at all. And I think that's just a good way of making this map more fun. I think overall it actually has a pretty good map structure. It just needs those like couple extra panic points to actually like force the players to actually play the game. So currently just gonna go in playable, I think. It's like bordering on maybe going into good, but I will put in playable. It's a little bit too slow. Then we have Phobopolis. Let's actually do the first one first. The non-reworked version, which I believe is also the first one down here. Yes, it is. So let's look at the original version of Phobopolis first, because the second one is technically speaking a new map, because they're not the same one that has just been changed. They kept the original Phobopolis in the game for some godforsaken reason, because it's in rotation right now, and every time I get it, I want to just quit Phobies and go play something else, pretty much. This map is terrible. There's a reason why we wanted it reworked. It's way too difficult to interact with the opponent because there's just way too many blocks. And the double vaults are again giving the players way too much control over their sides. So this vault up here means that you have too much control over this panic point. This vault down here means you have too much control over this panic point. There's only one panic point to fight over, and the heart is in a position where you can never attack it because of the double vaults. So this is just a terrible map. There's nothing else to say about it. However, there's great news. I don't even need to tell you how to rework it, because there is already a rework in the game, and this is a great map. It is a fantastic rework, and by removing the double vault thing and throwing another point in here near where the double vault used to be, the map has suddenly gone from being a slow and boring garbage stall map where nothing happened on for 30 turns, and where the meta was playing Fire Ant or Agora with Kivo 3.0 and Cupcake. Those were basically the only two things that you played, either Fire Ant or those two, and even Fire Ant you would often play with Agora. Either like you played those or you just weren't winning the game. It went from that to a map where you can play fast, you can play mid-range, you can play control, and you can even still play the combo stuff if you just slow the game down. But you have to pay a price to obviously slow the game down by like actually bringing Phobies early on to do so. But like, it is such a huge improvement that this map is just so much better now. I have no idea why they kept the other one in the game, because this version is absolute trash. So the original one is going into the bad tier, and the new one is going straight into the great maps tier. Oh, I almost skipped this. We have Phobos. Phobos is just a great map. I don't really have anything to say about this. It's just a solid, great map. We have a bunch of contestable panic points, 3 on both players' sides. We have a stim pad in the middle that you fight over, which can make some kind of swingy turns. You have the ability to go Gravedigger if you want to, but you're not forced to destroy this block. That is quite often done by player 2, who then snowballs up here. But you can also just go for like Ginsting with double 1 keys, and that's perfectly fine too. There's also other openers, like you can go Creep and a bunch of small Phobies. That's very viable also. There's a lot of different things you can play for. The map is a thing where you can play for control by like bringing Hevo 2.0 and trying to push the opponent in and like playing around the Abyss tiles. You can play mid-range, trying to use the stim pad with like Noxious and Hematic Ginsting and jumping off it with Cassowaries and Primate 9 even. Or you can play super aggressive and try and take the points early on, and maybe you even go for like Snowball into 1 key into 3 1 keys, and maybe even a Cassowary or like Cassowary double 1 key into Hematic, and you play super aggressive and you try and hard rush the opponent. All of those are viable. Control is also viable, although I think with control you have to break the block and then put like a turret out here that sits near your heart with another phobia like trying to take these, and then you hold these 3 points very heavily, and then you can play control. That is not done very often because it takes a lot of effort to do here. Control is like on the weaker side, but it's still playable here, and the other playstyles are all very viable. So I think this is just a great map. Ooh, we actually have 2 rows up here now. That's nice. Next up is Pluto. I think Pluto is just a playable map. This map actually has a very cool structure in my opinion. I forgot to change it. This map has a very cool structure in my opinion. The problem is just that the hearts are literally in Narnia yet again. There is no reason for the maps to be, or for the maps to be like this. Like why are they putting the hearts out here? They might as well not have hearts on this map. They could put the heart up here maybe, or over here. It would be the same map if you did that. That is like how far back these are. So that is obviously something that has to change. That is just not good for the map, because it just makes it way too difficult to actually approach it, which means you take control of the middle and then you're just sitting there staring at the opponent going, well, I guess I can't really do anything. Like, I'm just gonna have to wait for you to do something so that I can try and win. And that's very, very boring. So that needs to happen. We need to like move the heart further in. It probably just sits here. Oh, I didn't put them in the same spot. They should just be here and here. That was also a horrible heart. And that would instantly take it from a playable map to a good map. I think personally I actually would like to see them instead put the heart here and here. And then we move the panic point that is sitting here over here. So we end up with the map looking like this instead. I think what this does is it moves this panic point, which right now isn't contestable due to being too close to the vault, into a spot where it cannot instantly be taken with a 1 key. And that is pretty exciting to me. I think that would be better, but just moving the heart would also be perfectly fine. Having the heart just sit here is already a very good version of this map, and makes it way more fun to play on. The problem right now is you can just break this 1 block, and then both of these panic points are uncontestable. So you just sit here with a Bomangles or any other turret, and then you just spam 1 keys if the opponent tries to fight you. Or you bring a giant AoE phobia because you will have banked a bunch of keys. So that slows the game down way too much if you do that. And it's also just difficult to actually advance even if you get ahead. So that puts it in the playable map tier. But if they just move the heart in, it instantly goes up into the good maps tier. So it's very easy to actually change. Next up is RCO. RCO is terrible, or it's at least a bad map. It's probably not quite a terrible, depending on how you look at it. Again, we have a double obstacle formation here near the middle panic point. Pretty much any map other than Transaction Decline specifically, where you have this formation of 4 panic points around the middle, or 4 obstacles around the middle panic point. Any map that has that is going to be a bad map. That just slows the game down way too much. or at least any small map. I guess you can probably do it on a large map, but any small map with this kind of formation where you have 2 obstacles like this or even like this is just instantly a bad map, because it becomes way too difficult to fight the opponent. On top of that, the hearts are way too close to the walls and also very far back, which makes it way too difficult to fight. So on this map, you just have to remove some of these blocks in the middle. I think you probably remove the top and bottom one, but you could also make a version where you remove the other ones. And then the heart has to move further in, can move to here, here, or here. I think moving it down here to the bottom is the best version. Only moving it 1 up is probably a little bit too little, but moving it 2 up is maybe slightly too much, I would say. So that's why I want it down here instead. So heart here, these 2 blocks gone is what I would do. Could also remove these 2 blocks, but I think that's a worse version. If you remove those 2 blocks, this block and this block, then you should probably have the heart be here instead. Either way though, you have to get rid of the middle formation because that is just bad. Then we have Red Rover. This map is also very bad. I even made a video on it when it came out about how bad it was because I was very annoyed by that. There's just not really anything good to say about this. It has only 1 contestable panic point. The conveyor tiles force you to use giant phobies. Most of the top players just spam Cerberus here, which is very boring. The blocks make it so you can't play for hitting the enemy hard. These panic points might as well not exist because they're way too close to the vault and there's blocks between them. Same for these panic points up here. They are like pretty much useless, although they are even less useless than these ones, I would say. So there's just not really anything great to say about this. In order to make this a good map, you have to do some very significant changes to it. You have to... Actually, let me just go into the map creator to show this even. Because otherwise you can't really... You can't even really see it because it's so difficult to actually make it. So the current version, let's just make the current version so I can show you the entire set of changes I would do to make this map good. Because there's a lot of changes that have to happen in order for this to become even like a decent map, I would say. I believe this is exactly how it looks right now. Is there lava here? I can't even remember now. No, there is not. Also, I have to change the walls, obviously. Okay, so this is the current version of the map. And this is obviously horrible for the reasons I talked about. So first of all, this bottom formation here just has to go. There's nothing good about that. It might as well not be here. Like, if they did this, the map would play out almost the same. Except the blocks would actually, like, be unfun. Or make the game more fun by removing them. But if you did this and had no panic points, it would be pretty much the exact same as it is right now. They might as well not exist. Same for these ones even. Like, this is essentially what the map looks like right now, which is not very fun. So what we do here is we are going to remove these. Might as well just add these panic points in because I'm just going to keep those. We can still have a panic point at the bottom if we just place it here. And then we make it actually be contestable by doing this. So now that panic point is contestable and you can actually fight over it. And it's not going to be just instantly killed whatever you place there. Then we add another panic point in the middle because now we have more to fight over. That's also very good. Suddenly we have these 3 panic points we can fight over, which makes it way more fun to play actively on the map rather than just banking and going Cerberus. Then we open up the hearts like this. And we want to remove some of these conveyor tiles because currently you are just being moved into the map too quickly, I think. Now, which ones you want to actually remove is something that has been discussed a lot by high-ranking players on the Phobies Discord. there is a lot of different camps for like how you actually want it to be, depending on who you ask, because some people really want there to be like a map where you play for the slow phobies. Others think that it should be like a small thing, like a bonus thing, something it shouldn't, that almost shouldn't be in conveyors at all, or it should be only one conveyor. Personally, I'm in the camp of maybe doing this or this. Either of those would work for me. I think if they want to keep as many conveyors as possible, this is probably the best version. You just can't allow Cerberus to get into the map that fast, or any other slow huge phobia like a Blondie or Bloodwurst. By removing the one that is the closest to the vault, you end up making it so it has to like sit here for a turn before it can move in here, and that slows it down a lot. So this would be a good version of the map. If you want to, you could add more penny points here. Then you are making it way more aggressive, and that could be fun. If you're doing that, you could maybe get away with not having this penny point and just having the lava instead, like you had before, if you want to keep the lava. But this is essentially what you have to do to make the map become good. You have to remove some of the conveyors, you have to open up the heart, you have to remove the bottom formation and create a better version of it. And that's really all that has to happen. That's still a lot of things. But currently it's just a very bad map. It's definitely going in here. Next up is Red Rum. Red Rum is fantastic. This map is just great. It has 3 contestable penny points, a heart that is both approachable and defendable, a spa that is far enough back into a corner that you lose tempo from using it, but it's still useful. And the obstacles are placed in a way where they are interesting. Sometimes you will gravedigger one of them just to have a easier time setting up your team, but you don't need to do that. You can play fast here, you can play mid-range here, you can play control here, you can play combo here. Everything is viable. It's a fantastic map. This is for sure going into the P tier for me. Just a very, very, very good map. Next up is Rise to Stardom. Rise to Stardom is a great map in my opinion, even though it only has like 2 or 3, depending on whether you count the middle, truly contestable panic points. The heart is vulnerable enough that it still works. The disease and poison tiles are actually interesting, and the healing spas are again in the corners so that they are not ones you can just use for free, but they're still useful for the map because of the poison. You can even use them against the disease at times. And this map is very interesting because it is all about managing both sides at the same time, which is really, really cool. So you like have to manage how many resources you have down here compared to up here. Because if you invest too heavily on one side, you will lose the other side. And then that becomes very difficult to play for you often. There is like some potential changes you could do to it to maybe make it better, because currently a lot of players try and use a terraformer to break this block or either of these blocks in here, and that is like a little bit gravedigger heavy like thing. But I don't actually think you have to do that. You can just ignore the middle point or take it with a flyer, and that is perfectly fine too. However, maybe there is a better version where you like remove both of these blocks or remove them on one side only. Like maybe you just remove here and here, or opposite that. And that is maybe a better map, but I don't think that's enough of a bad thing to say about this to pull it out of the great map tier and into the good map tier. It's definitely going into great maps for me. Next up, we have Rocked Footing. This is a playable map, I think. This is like a map where flyers and pushers are way too good. They are like pretty much the only thing you play most of the time. It's just too focused on those specific phobies because of the large amount of abyss tiles, which feels very bad for players that don't have enough of those phobies, like if you're a newer player or if you just got unlucky on your packs. And it also makes the map feel kind of repetitive at times because of that. Like you see a lot of Hero 2.0 and flying phobies, especially like Tooth Fairy, Murder Wing, Puff here. And that becomes a little bit boring. Sometimes you also see rockers just because it's that hard to actually play ground units. So I would be removing some of these obstacles, and I think that would fix a lot of the issues and make it a potentially even great map, but at least a good map. The obstacles that I would be removing is just like the top one here from both of these, and then probably also either this one or this one. I would probably go for the top one instead of the bottom one, just because that opens up the space up here a little bit more, but both are kind of fine. And it also makes it easier to stand in the middle with grounded units, so that's probably better. But yeah, just destroy this, destroy this, destroy this, destroy this, and suddenly you have a pretty cool map. Currently though, it's going into the playable tier. Very close to actually being able to go into the good or great tier though, if you just like do those small changes to the abyss tiles. Then we have Rush Hour. This is a very bad map. Where do I even start with how bad this map is? It has so many problems. It has double vaults, which makes it way too easy to slow the game down. The heart is completely unapproachable. The healing spell is way too good for defending. The lava and the obstacles make it way too difficult to actually fight. It basically discourages you from interacting with the opponent. There's so much in the way of this being a good map. You have to remove a vault. You have to move the heart further in. You have to remove some of the lava. You have to either delete the spa or move it somewhere completely different. You have to add more panic points probably after you do that. And then it would probably be like a good map or maybe even a great map. But that is a very large amount of changes that you have to do to it. I think you put the heart either here or here, something like that. Probably put it at the top because then it can be attacked from up here. Then you remove this vault at the top because that vault is just bad. You place this here and you remove this vault, obviously, because we are mirroring it. Now suddenly it's only this panic point that is going to be contested with the vault, because this isn't contesting this easily. So that's kind of nice. And also we're going to have to move the healing spa somewhere. I like the idea of putting the healing spa somewhere in here. Maybe we even put the healing spa where the vaults used to be. And then we are adding more panic points, so we want maybe a panic point here and here, I would say. And we probably also want to remove some lava, so I would remove this lava potentially on both sides. Maybe even remove this lava too, but that's arguable. You would definitely want to remove this because then you can hit the heart from there, which I think is a pretty big deal. You could also keep all of the lava, but instead remove both of these blocks, and that would make fighting in the middle more viable too. But again, like I was saying, that is a very, very large amount of changes to this map. It would look very, very different, and it would need to look very, very different because it is just a bad map. Even the skeleton for this map is just terrible. Then we have Scoposeum. Scoposeum is a great map. It is slightly on the aggressive side, but it is not enough for me to drop it down to good maps. And it's probably a map scaling issue anyway that it's too aggressive. At level 1s, I think this is probably just perfect. So I love this map. I think it's very fun to play on. You can play Speedolas, you can play Quagmire, you can play Charon with fast Phobies. You can play Control using Charon and remove some, or not remove, but mud up some of these lava tiles, and then bring slow Phobies and build a giant defense and play Control that way. You can do the same kind of thing and go into a combo, or if the opponent is playing slow, you can go for combo. Most of the time you play either mid-range or aggressive, which are exciting, or at least one player does, and it's just fun. I think this map is just great. So this is definitely going all the way up into the great tier. Next up, we have Showdown. Showdown is a bad map. You are forced to go Gravedigger here, and the hearts are also very difficult to attack. Fighting for the panic points at the top is too difficult, and there isn't really enough panic points to fight over in general. So that just means you have very slow, boring matches on this map. I think all you really have to do for it to become great, though, is you remove these two bottom blocks, and then you add another panic point here. And that makes the map instantly go from a bad map to a great map instead. So, very easy to change, but currently it's a bad map. I think it's also in rotation right now. It's very, very sad to see, because you just know it could be way better very easily. Then we have Step Right Up, which is a bad map. The hearts are, again, Like, why are they in Narnia? I don't know. We'll have to ask the developers. You're literally in nowhere. You're forced to play Gravedigger here due to all of the walls, which makes the panic points near the walls uncontestable because you're playing Gravedigger and breaking a block. And I don't really know about reworking this because there is essentially already a good version of this, and it's called a Nightmares Refugee, and it's a great map. So you should just never put this map in the game. That's essentially all you have to do with step right up. It should just be erased completely. From my memory too, preferably. Then we have Stumbling Blocks, which is a good map. I think this is very, very close to being a great map, but the heart is just slightly too closed off, which makes finishing games take very long, even if you're far ahead a lot of the time, which is not a good feeling. I think that is incredibly easy to fix again though, because all that you do is you move the heart here, and then you erase this block in front. And then it goes instantly into being a great map. So, very easy to fix. Currently it's just gonna go into the good map tier though. I almost lost control of where it was there. But yeah, it's a map that feels very good to play on. But if you just move the heart further in so that you can actually finish matches, then it goes definitely up into great. Maybe into peak, but probably not. It just is a great map then. Then we have Teen Spirit. This map is bad design. It's not like the worst design, but can I just say, personally, I absolutely hate this map. Like, I don't even want to see a reworked version of it. That's how much I dislike it. Because even if they like rework it and it becomes better, I still won't like it. I already know for certain I still won't like it. I just don't like this type of map. But this is just another map with these four obstacles around the panic point in the middle. And that just means that the map is unplayable. It's like RCO. And you can't really fight early on. So that's just what it is. You have to remove one of the middle panic points for the map to even be somewhat playable. And then you probably also want to move the heart further in. It could either go down here or it could go up here, depending on what you want to do. And if you do that, maybe it becomes a good map. But again, I don't like it. I hope they don't rework this. I hope they just remove it instead. That would be better for me. Next up, we have the Big House. This is also a bad map. There is not enough space to fight on. The hearts might as well not be on the map yet again. Like, could be out here, and it would be the same map. Like, it literally would not change anything. Yeah. That's pretty much all I have to say about this. It's also very difficult to actually change this map to look like be a good map without changing the skeleton, because it has like the whole symmetry thing going on, which is difficult to make a good version of. I think one of the people, I think it was Karst actually, also said that you could maybe make the vault go up here, and maybe you also move the heart further in somewhere, like maybe you put the heart here and here after that, and that would potentially make the map good. That is a very big change in how you play the map. Actually, I think they even placed the hearts here so they were blocked off or something, and then they put the vault up here. It was something like that anyway. Basically what I'm getting at is just the heart moves further in and they're moving the vault, and that maybe makes the map good. But currently it's pretty bad. The whole space issue is like a very big thing on this map, because you can't really fight for stuff early on due to there just being too many obstacles in the way. It's kind of a little bit like a mini Phobopolis, but not really. It's definitely a bad map though, no matter how you twist and turn it. Then we have the Burning Rings, which is a bad map. This is just the like worst version of Center of Attention, which was the reworked version. That one also still isn't perfect, but it's way better than this. You can't stand in the middle because there's a ton of lava, so you just play pushers and you push the opponent into the abyss tiles and the game ends. And that's all you ever play for. You just go Kiva 2.0 plus Rambolina and you make the opponent miserable, and you play a bunch of flyers because otherwise they're going to do the same thing to you. So it's just a terrible map. there's not really any redeeming factor because Center of Attention is just better, and the Burning Rings should not be in the game. Then we have the Carousel as the next one. The Carousel is also a bad map. Again, there are 4 walls in the middle around the middle panic point. That's instantly a bad map. So this map is terrible. There's not anything else I want to say about it because I also don't really think it's even interesting. It's just a very boring map. It doesn't have any identity outside of being terrible because there's a lot of points in the middle. Or not points. There's a lot of blocks in the middle. So I'm not sure how you would even make this a new map. This is another map that they should probably just delete. Or they should do like a complete rework and call it something different. So I'm just gonna throw this into the bad tier and move on. Next up we have The Floor is Lava. This is playable, but it's like bordering on being a bad map. Only the corner points are contestable, and the ladder makes fighting very difficult on this map, like the middle ladder. The only thing that keeps this map out of the bad tier is the fact that you can play aggressive as player 1 by like taking control of the bottom side of the map down here early on, and then just perma-fighting for control over it, of this part of the map and never letting go. And that can move the game into an exciting state where both players are going back and forth and you're trading a lot of phobies and keys. And that's pretty fun. But that does not happen that often, and it's like only doable as player 1 also. So if you're player 2, you're just at your opponent's mercy on whether they want a fun match or not, which is a bad feeling. And overall, it's just not very good. I would say these Lavatars just have to go. That's unfortunate because the map is named The Floor is Lava, and the floor can't really be lava here. So I don't know what you do about that. Maybe you throw in a bunch of Lavatars, like you put the Lavatars here near the vault. Then there's lava on the map, I guess. So that would make lava. So maybe you can keep the name. But outside of that, you definitely just have to remove all of the lava tiles, and then I would move this panic point out here, 1 tile further in. Because by doing that, we are making it a contestable panic point, rather than one that the blue player can immediately take here and the red player can immediately take here, because they're too close to the vault. So you just have more contestable panic points that way, which is way more exciting. But yeah, I don't know how you keep the lava identity other than like having some lava sit near the vault or something weird like that. Oh, it's playable, not bad. Almost put it in the wrong tier. Then we have the Wunsch Lure as the next one. The Wunsch Lure is a bad map. There is just no space to fight on. It's way too dominated by displacement phobies. The heart is completely unapproachable, and the stim pad also makes defending the heart easier on top of that. On this map, players just always played Akira with multiple other displacement phobies, and it was incredibly boring. You would have to remove like 2 of the Abyss tiles, remove the stim pad, and move the heart into a more vulnerable position for the map to even be decent. So that's a lot of changes. So you like remove this Abyss tile, I guess, remove this Abyss tile, then you remove the stim pads, and you move the heart further in. Maybe it goes here. Something like that would maybe be playable. I don't know. That would maybe be a good map, but that is also a very big change from how it used to be. So very different map at that point. Currently though, just a terrible map, and I'm glad it's not in rotation. Then we have the Penny Dropped. I think this is a good map. It's very close to being a great map. The heart is just slightly too difficult to attack with normal phobies, which makes lobbers, especially like Klepto, feel a bit too forced here. Otherwise, you can maybe go Gravedigger, but that's not seen that commonly. Other than that, it feels like a great map though. Removing the middlemost obstacle, meaning these ones near the heart, would easily make this into a great map though. It would possibly even make it a peak map, I would say. But I'd have to try to actually be 100% sure if it's one or the other. But it would be a very, very good way of changing this map to be fun. Also, if you do that, maybe you could move the heart here. I don't know if you need to do that though, but you could have the heart sit here. It's probably better that they're in their current position though, and you just remove this, because it keeps the map the same, and I'm sure it will work that way. So this is just a map that could very easily go from being good to great if they want to. But still, again, we are not going to be unhappy about a good map. Good maps are not that common. Then we have the Pyro Abyss. That is a playable map, I would say. The Pyro Abyss feels a lot like playing a small map with large map keys, which is pretty unique. It's a little bit too slow, which could be fixed by adding some panic points. I would say you add one in the middle and maybe also at the top. I would definitely want one at the top, but it depends on who you ask. So I would do something like this, and I think that would be a pretty good map. That would put it in the good tier, definitely. I still don't think it would make it to the great tier, but it would be good. I personally really don't like this map, but I don't think it's a bad concept, and I also think that if you add those 2 more panic points, it would be a great map. I just don't really like it personally. I don't find that type of map fun. But that doesn't mean that other people shouldn't be able to enjoy that type of map. So it's gonna go into the playable tier, but could very easily become a good map instead. Then we have the Rings. The Rings is a good map. I think this is also pretty close to being a great map even. I think it's slightly too flyer focused due to having too many Abyss tiles for it to make it into the great tier. Like, you're just too forced on flyers most of the time, and that feels kind of bad, because if you don't have enough flyers, that's really rough, and a lot of newer players probably won't have the right flyers to play here. So if you're a new player and you don't have Noxious and the opponent plays Noxious, what do you even do? You just sit down and pray, probably. And if you bring non-flying Phobies and the opponent brings a Hevo 2.0, you are literally gonna cry. Like, it's just horrible at that point. So I think you have to remove some of these Abyss tiles. I would just actually remove this one and this one, and I think that would already be enough for the map to be a lot better. I would personally probably put a panic point here to have more to fight over at the bottom, and then I would remove this specific Abyss tile up here and replace it with lava. Let me actually just write L so it's more clear. I would replace these 2 with lava so that you can go with a melee phobia from up here and hit the heart when you're hard rushing. I think that's a very slight change. It doesn't really change how you play the map most of the time, but it just makes hard rushing slightly easier to do with non-flying phobies, which I think is a good thing for the map. You could also choose not to have this down here, the extra panic point there, and instead make panic point down here. I think that could also be viable, that you do like something like this with 2 blocks on the sides. That would also be pretty good, because then you fight over that panic point. Either of those options would work. I think that you just need to remove a little bit of the Abyss tiles, because it's a little flyer heavy, and by a little I mean a large amount of flyers are being used here compared to what it probably should be, because again, this is like an important thing that doesn't seem that important when you're high rank or you are a long time player, because for me it doesn't matter that I have to bring a lot of flyers, because I have a lot of flyers. But if you are a new player, which is something we should be catering the game toward, and you go onto a map like that and you have no flyers, you might just rage quit, because it feels so bad if you only have like Murderwing and maybe a Pterodactyl, and the opponent is playing Puff, and they're playing Hevo 2.0, and they're playing Noxious, and they're playing Tooth Fairy and Murderwing. You are just gonna have a terrible time. So it's very important to like make sure that maps don't require you to have specific phobies. Then we have This Might Sting a Little. This is probably my favorite large map of all time, and by probably I mean definitely. I absolutely adore this map. However, I don't think it goes into peak, and I don't even think it goes into the great tier, because it could be made slightly better by removing some of the lava tiles in the middle, and that would make it easier to fight during the early game, and I think that would like make it just a bit better. So currently it's a great map, but you can't really fight around the middle early on that well because of these two lava tiles. So I would just remove those two, just turn these two into normal tiles, and that would be all I did. You could maybe make an argument to like add a panic point either here or here and like have more panic points that way, but I don't even think the map really needs that. I think it just needs those two lava tiles removed, and then I would instantly be putting it into either the great tier or maybe even peak, although I am maybe slightly biased on putting it into the peak tier because I really like this map. But currently it's just gonna go into the good tier because I can't really place it higher when it has a little bit too much lava in the middle. Then we have Tombstone. I think Tombstone is a good map, which is kind of surprising because I didn't think it would be when it first came out. It is a little bit too slow and the hearts are way too difficult to attack. You could improve this like very slightly by moving the heart one tile in, by like swapping it with the Abyss. I still don't think that would put it into the great tier at all. As a matter of fact, I think it's like bordering on dropping down into the playable tier right now. And it would just like make it definitely a good tier map if you did that, like swap the heart and the Abyss tile. But there's not really a good way of reworking this either, where you actually make it so that you like have more stuff to fight over in the middle and like kind of take the heart better and stuff like that. I think it should just stay as a decent map that is pretty unique because of how you play like constant turrets onto this and then some slower big phobies often, or you try and do like big combos off the stim pads with jumping with Castaway and flying onto it with Noxious that has been cupcaked and stuff. Those are like pretty cool play styles. So I think the map is good, but it's hard for it to get better, or at least much better. Next up, we have Toys in the Attic. This map is atrocious. It only has one contestable panic point, a heart that is placed pretty damn far back, which is very difficult to attack, especially because there's poison tiles around it, and there's a conveyor, and there's a Abyss tile near it. Then the poison tiles in the middle make it really difficult to fight the opponent and actively play the game. And on top of that, like this like stim pad out here is weirdly good for like protecting your heart at times if the opponent tries to like sit down here. You can do some weird things where you like have a phobie sit down there and they can't even like try and go onto your heart because you will just delete them. That happens very rarely. Like stim pad might as well not be there probably, but it's just a terrible map because of everything on it. On top of that, other than it just like being bad design in my opinion, can I just say I hate this map. I spit on this map, honestly. Not only is it like bad gameplay wise, but it is horrible to look at. It is so damn ugly. It looks like someone vomited random tiles onto the board and just decided to go with it. It is horribly looking. There's like no redeeming quality for me in my opinion for how this map looks. It is so just terrible to look at. It feels like torture just looking at it right now. I wouldn't even bother trying to rework this map just because of how disgusting it looks. Just erase this from the gameplays. It is such a horrible, filthy map in my opinion. It definitely goes into the burn it with fire for me. Like, it is so ugly and it is so bad at the same time. Horrible map for me. Then we have Transaction Declined. This is a great map and it is a very cool design because we have the double blocks in the middle around a panic point, and yet they managed to make the map good. That is a one in a lifetime occurrence for Phobies, because there is no other map with this like double formation, or at least no other small map with this double wall formation in the middle that is even remotely good. But this one right here is fantastic, I think. it is like very, very good. You have the heart that is very, very easy to attack because it's far into the map, but you can still defend it because it's also fairly close to your vault still. You have the conveyor towers that make it easier to play aggressive. You can use those to take the panic points with 1 keys, but you can still hold onto the points if you're the other player by having a phobie sit on them. The conveyor also means that you can play slow phobies such as Hydra and threaten the heart that way. You can play for lobbers here because you can hit over the obstacles. You can play for using the healing spa, which again is in the corner, so you cannot use it for just like controlling your board. You only really use it to heal with whenever you have something that is damaged or need to be cured, so you have to lose tempo to use it, which is great. Overall, this is just a fantastic map. I think it is leaning to being like it leans towards being slightly too aggro at high levels, or especially like max levels if you're like level 25 to 30, but that is just due to map scaling, and it's not even like most players are even close to that yet. That doesn't matter that much. Overall though, I think this map is just great. It definitely goes into the great tier for me, and it is a very cool design because honestly I never thought I would see a map with that like double formation or double block formation in the middle that would actually be even remotely good. Then we have Unblinking Expanse. I think Unblinking Expanse is pretty good. It's not fantastic because it's like leaning towards being a little bit aggressive, I think, at times, but you can still defend. Problem is when you then manage to defend or the other player decides not to play aggressive, it ends up being very displacement heavy, which also doesn't feel good for newer players because newer players don't really know how to play aggressive, if we're being honest. They don't even know how to play at all, to be honest. But they especially don't know how to play aggressive or mid-range, and that means they're going to be playing a slow game on this map. And if they only have Miss Moffat and the opponent has a bunch of displacement phobies, then it's going to feel pretty rough for them. Of course, we cannot like build the maps around entirely like new players, but I still think you have to take that into consideration at least a little bit. And I find that at high ranks it's still a little bit too hard rushy, and that keeps me from putting it into the great tier. But I think it's like bordering on going into the great tier. It's like very close to it. It's a good map, definitely. I thought it would be way too hard rushy when I first saw it, but I'm actually surprised that you can defend on it if you just play your cards right during the early game. Then next up we have Vicious Cycle. Vicious Cycle is a bad map. Again, the heart is just off the map. The panic points on the sides are far too difficult to take for the opposing player, because if you're blue player you have to do this to go here, whereas the red player has to do this. You can very easily see which line is longer here, and that just means that you only ever fight over the middle point, and that is not enough to pressure a heart that doesn't exist. So the map just ends up being very slow. Then the players put something here that can walk forward to the conveyor and hit the opponent, and then gets moved back into safety on the stem pad again, which means that both players cannot stand on this space, and the other player cannot stand on this space. And then that creates a map where you have to bring Gravedigger, which slows it down even further, and it's just very, very boring really, really fast. So I don't really like this map. I think it needs very significant changes for it to become even somewhat good, to the point where it would look probably completely different. You would have to move the panic point further in, you'd have to get rid of the conveyor tile or even the stim pad, or change them in some kind of way. Like, you're just changing too much at that point already. It's like very, very different, and the heart would also have to move in and probably replace this panic point, or not panic point, obstacle, so that you can actually attack it. There's just so many changes that you have to make to it, where it's basically just gonna be a new map if you change it. So better to just not bother, in my opinion. Then we have Vile Vortex. This is playable, but it's like bordering on being a bad map, in my opinion. The heart is very far back, and the healing spa makes it very easy to defend also. So that is not very good. The spa definitely needs to be moved on this map for it to become good. There's also maybe not quite enough panic points on here, although there are enough with these 3 ones in the middle that the game is at least moving forward, which is why I think it belongs in the playable tier. But like I said, the heart is very far back, and this healing spa makes it way too easy to defend for both players. So that's not very good. The healing spa needs to go like down here or something like that on the sides, so that you have to lose tempo to use them. And then either you need to move the heart further in, which is an option, or you need to add more panic points. I would like to see the hearts move 1 up like this, and then for us to add panic points here and here. I think that would be pretty good. You could maybe even destroy this block and add a panic point here if you really want a lot more panic points. But you probably don't want that many. Just adding those 2 and moving the hearts 1 up, moving the healing spas down, would make this a good or maybe even great map in my opinion. Currently though, it's barely making into the playable tier. It's like bordering on dropping down into bad tier. Then we have Withering Heights, which I couldn't find the picture for, so we are stuck with this. This map is not good. It's quite bad even. It's way too easy to just play hyper aggressive on this map. You just like run at the opponent and kill them really fast. Wait, this is not how it looks. Oh, this is my reworked version of it. Hold on for a minute. I'm gonna find the real version of this, or I'm just gonna make it actually. That is not how that map looks at all, I'm 100% certain. I remember there being double blocks at the bottom and the heart being way more attackable. Let me just quickly look up exactly how that map looks actually. Because we can just find that by going maps. I think it's in here at least. Maybe it's not actually in here. Oh, it's here. It's very bad quality though. I'm just quickly going to recreate this in the map maker so we can look at it. Let's just do the blocks. It's easy. So there's blocks. Or at least on this side of this. Was there more poison? Yeah, there's poison near the middle and up here. That has to be here. Wait, no, it's not there, right? No, it's not there. It goes a little bit too far in. Just like that. And then there's a panic point here. And here, I believe. Is that correct? No, that's not correct. I did it correct the first time, I think. It's hard when the picture is such bad quality to see exactly how it is. And I haven't played on this map for a very long time because it was only a rotation for a small amount of time. Oh, I placed the poison tiles incorrectly there too. And then we have the hearts. Where is it? Here and here. I think this is how it looked. And then there was some poison in the middle. So this is how the map looks right now. I don't know why I probably have a reworked version. This is probably me trying to rework the map. Yeah, this is definitely me trying to rework it. I don't know if removing this block is even good for the reworked version of it. But you could see there how I would change it, I guess. The problem with this map, though, is that players would just run over here with a lobber and start hitting the heart. Or they would break the block and start hitting the heart. Or they would even just take a couple of the points and then they would fly out here with Morty behind the heart. And if you just put a Morty on this exact tile, or here for that matter, then the red player has a very long path to go to actually fight it, and they're going to die way too fast to actually defend. This is another one of those maps where you were killing the opponent in like 8 to 10 turns very, very often. So this is just very, very bad. I guess I can very easily show you now how I would rework it. This is the rework for it. I think this is not actually the best version. I think we should be moving the heart here, the heart here, and we should have a healing spot either here or here. Probably down is better. So we place a healing spot here. We keep this block probably. And it's something like that, I guess, would be my version of what I would make this map into. Quite a lot of changes, but I think it still looks close enough for that to be good. Currently, though, it's just going to be a bad map. Then finally, we have Silo. Silo is also a bad map. It is far too displacement focused. It has a healing spot that works too well for defense. And it also only has one contestable panic point. So that is very, very, very bad. You basically just like take these points early on, and then you bring Attractor, Repeller, Akira, stuff like that, and you just push the opponent off the map. Maybe a Hero 2.0 sometimes gets played, and you Gravedigger one of the blocks in the middle, usually on the early turns, just so that you can actually move around a little bit better. And that's all you do, and then you bring tech phobies like Furkin Leprechaun and maybe a Noxious to try and poison their Kira, but there's also a healing spa, so that's not even that good. So, like, very, very difficult to actually play anything but Displacement on, because there's just not enough space to interact with the opponent, and there's a lot of places that you can get put into a bad spot if you try and fight them. If you wanted to make this map good, you would again have to remove the double vaults. I'm sorry to say it, but there's only 2 maps that do double vaults even decently well, and this is not one of them. So we would just remove probably the top vault here and the bottom vault here. And that means that this healing spa is now more contestable, and these panic points all become contestable, because this is not in range of this is not in range of it, and these are not in range of the blue player. So suddenly we have a full map of contestable panic points just by removing these 2, and that's very nice. I think you would probably still want one more point in here, probably. It's hard to say exactly, but you could like throw a point here, or here for that matter. Doesn't really matter exactly where you place it. I think I would probably prefer it being further in, so you like have it here. And then you just like play for the panic points. You can try and rotate over here to attack the opponent's hard. You can still use displacement phobies, which are going to be very good. You can maybe try and get on the opponent's stim pad by like wrapping around here while taking the points and then going onto the stim pad. You're still going to be very close to the wall, so they can very easily defend that. That's something you could play for. It also means that you could actually destroy the block over here or here, depending on which side you're on. And then you can try and go in here with a lobber and threaten the opponent's stim pad and hard. So that would be pretty healthy. But currently it's just a bad map. Has potential to be made into a good map, probably. But yeah, that is all for this tier list. I will say, looking at this, you will be able to very easily notice something, which is around half the maps in the game are really bad, and at least 1/3 of the other maps are ones that could need some like significant improvement, and some that would maybe need slight improvement. The actual amount of like great maps up here is very, very, very small compared to how many maps we have, which is unfortunate, because like, how do I even explain this? Playing on these maps up here feels like a 10 out of 10 game. Playing on these maps here usually feels like maybe, let's say, 8.5 out of 10 game, probably. Somewhere around this level. Maybe depending on whether you're in the good maps or playable maps and exactly how the match is going. It can feel like 8.5, maybe it's slightly lower at times, maybe it's slightly higher at times. And then you get to this lower end where there's so many maps that are grouped up here. And when you're playing on any of these maps, Phobies feels like, let's be generous and give it a 3 out of 10 maybe. And that's being quite generous. It's probably closer to a 2. Those maps are just terrible to play on for any advanced player. Maybe for newer players it's slightly less horrible, but even for them I think it has a very big impact on their experience. They're just not good enough at the game to actually explain what's wrong yet. So they like blame it on Phobies or something else instead. But I think like there's so much improvement to be made here. And it is unfortunate because it has a huge impact on how fun the game is to play. Like, I can use this as a very good example actually, because we had 2 or 3 weeks, I think it was even 3 weeks in a row, where we had very good map rotations, and it's not very long ago. It's like a month ago or so. We had 3 weeks in a row with really good map rotation where there was at most 1 or 2 bad maps, and the rest were either great maps or good maps with a few playable maps sprinkled in, and even some peak maps in here. And during those weeks, I played like 60 to 70 games per week. I literally ended the season with like 260 games or something. Now we have had 3 weeks in a row with quite bad map rotations where we have at most 1 or 2 good maps and the rest of the maps are really, really bad, or at least like in the lower end of the playable tier. And I don't even play 20 games per week right now. Like, that is how big of a difference. You literally cut my, like, enjoyment of the game into 1/3 or something like that. I guess that's how you would explain it, maybe. But, like, you reduced my wish to play the game so much that I'm barely playing it anymore. I'm basically just logging in and getting my jacks and then logging out so that I can play the game again when it becomes fun. That is how big of an impact this has on the game. So I really, really hope that we see a lot of reworks and also just removal of bad maps. Like, if we're being honest, all of these maps right here should not be in the game right now. You can rework them and reintroduce them to the game, and that is really exciting because you get to see a map that you are very familiar with, but it has a new twist on it and it's very fun. But none of them should be in the game. These should not be in the cycle. 0 of them should be in the cycle right now because they only make Phobies worse. They just make Phobies a worse game, straight up. All of them. So none of these should be in rotation. But reworking them is really, really good. So maybe you're only doing 2 or 3 rework maps at a time because that is kind of the pace we are going at. But if you just remove all of these maps and then you slowly rework 4 of them or maybe 5 of them at a time and you do them in those kind of batches, that is really exciting and fun for the players when they get those maps back. And it's just a super cool thing. And you don't ruin everybody's experience with these terrible maps. So I would really, really hope that they would do that. They're probably not going to do that, but it would be incredible if they did. Also, I will say a lot of these maps also aren't in rotation already. They have removed a lot of the really bad maps, so props to them for that. But there is still a lot of very bad maps in rotation. Enough that we have a rotation right now where there's like 4 or 5 of the maps that are terrible, which means more than half the time when I queue up, I'm gonna get a bad map. And that is like really, really, really making me not want to queue up, which is also why you're seeing me not put out as many videos. You can literally look at how many videos I'm putting out, and suddenly I'm going from putting out maybe 5 or 6 arena games per week to putting out 1 arena game. Why is that? It's because I'm not playing the game. It's not because I'm not recording, it's because I'm not playing. So yeah, I would really hope that they just like delete the Phobies or the maps that are in here and then probably rework a lot of them, because a lot of them actually have very good ideas and like skeletons or structures, whatever you want to call it. They're just not quite right, and they can very easily be made very good, which would be really, really fun for everyone involved. Anyway, enough talking about that. This was basically all I wanted to do. We have these 3 maps, which are just the 3 best maps in the game, in my opinion. And then we have a lot of great maps, a lot of good maps, a decent chunk of playable maps, and way too many bad maps. There's probably some of you who will disagree with my like rankings here, and that's fine. I think this is like objectively the correct list. This is not made on like which maps I like, because like I said, this might sting a little, is my favorite map of all time. If we were just doing which maps do you love, then this map would be like up here, far above everything else. But it's not, because it doesn't deserve to be, in my opinion. It's not quite there yet. So yeah, but feel free to leave comments on any maps that you disagree with, and we can like discuss it if you want to, or you can just say that you like a bad map because you don't understand the game. That's fine too, because there are some bad maps that can be pretty fun. For example, a lot of people really like the the conveyor tile one, this one, with a lot of conveyors moving towards the pit. That is, objectively speaking, a bad map, but it is a very unique experience which some people like. It's fun the first time you play on it, at least, but then after that it's not very fun anymore. So some people will maybe disagree with them, but this is just like what I think the game should be, and what I think would make the game more successful and more fun for all players. But thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye bye.